Dough, One Pride. This is the Roar of the Lions UK podcast, the podcast where 6 random guys from around the British Isles get together to talk about anything and everything Detroit Lions. My name is Antony Fitzpatrick and I'm joined this evening by Ryan McCluskey. It's Wednesday, which means it is the college football podcast. Ryan, how are we getting on today?
I'm depressed. Bradford lost to Harrogate again. That's 4 out of 4. I hate sports and they hate me.
Oh, don't even start. We lost 2-0 at home to Wrexham last night and our title credentials are just falling through. We got so many injured players. 2 players had the legs broken in the last week, 2 of our best players, and it's just, I don't want anything to do with football at the minute. Just in light of things, how is our new mascot there? Your little doggy, how's he doing?
Oh, he's cool, yeah. He's living the dream. I'm going to make him a poor Detroit Lions fan. Like say, so he has to suffer my pain as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And if anyone knows of any outfits that can get some doggy gear in for a Detroit Lions fan, Ryan would be very interested to hear from you. I know he is looking. Sorry, Hank, but you're going to have to suffer with the rest of us there. But moving on, as I say, this is the College Football Podcast, and we have a little bit of a special show for you today. This is episode 25. We are on the road to the draft, and there are only 2 stops left on that road. We have the Indianapolis Combine coming up on Monday, and then we have the Pro Day circuit where we will, scouts take to the road all over the country. One last chance to see the draft prospects before that comes around. And, you know, there's a lot of information going to be coming your way soon, so what better, instead of just 2 of us today, we actually have 3 of us. So, as the men at work famously once sang, there's an Englishman in New York. Well, today for you we have an American in Poland. Weirdly enough, the man is representing the green in the country of red and white. He hosts the Standing Room Spartans Podcast. We are absolutely delighted to introduce to you Kevin Parker. Welcome.
Yeah, thanks for having me, guys. I appreciate the invite, and I'm always happy to talk really any football. Being in Poland, you don't get the chance as much as I would back home. So good to be on. I appreciate you having me.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's great that you've come on here. I mean, it's just come at the right time, actually. You're trying to focus on some of the conferences in a little bit more detail as we go along. And what better way to have someone who knows his ins and outs, especially here with the Big 10. So with that in mind, this is the Big 10 show. We're going to be focusing today, having a look at the draft class coming out of the Big 10, heading towards the 2022 NFL Draft. And then we're going to have a little look at the future, as well as we're going to look at some of the recruiting classes for next year. Just before we start, we're just going to go through a little bit of news to start off with. So, as I say, the first of the last 2 stops towards the NFL draft is coming. This is the NFL Combine, takes place in Indianapolis, which starts next Monday. Was a problem earlier in the week, and the event was actually under threat itself because it came out there were going to be bubble restrictions in place limiting where the participants could go during the week, and also that they were only allowed a single member of fully vaccinated medical staff to be with them on site. Obviously some of these players have full medical teams and whatsoever, and nearly 150 of the participants threatened to boycott if this wasn't overturned, as it were, and within a day the NFL had folded. The bubble restrictions are gone and everyone is going to be going to the Combine as per before. I don't know about you, Ryan, but maybe common sense prevailed on this one, really?
Yeah, I don't know. It seems like they're a bit of a spoilt brat, negative attitude going on. They were only doing it for their own good. The way I see it is, I understand these strict rules because a lot of countries out there that are still struggling with the pandemic, the amount of vaccinations, a lot of these guys haven't had any jabs, some won't disclose the vaccination status. So I understand trying to limit contact. I think it was the fact they weren't allowed to leave the facility for the entire week, or they would be disqualified and not allowed to take part in the actual combine drills, which probably upset them. But it's such a huge part of the calendar year, it was never going to come under any threat. So it doesn't surprise me that the NFL took to it, put its leg between its tail, ran away and decided to change their mind and give in. So it was the best quick decision on short notice. So that doesn't overall surprise me.
Yeah, absolutely. Kevin, I mean, we're going to talk about your draft class obviously coming through the Spartans in a minute, but the Combine is coming up. It is a big showcase for some of the players there. Are there any of your guys who are going who could really do with a standout showing at the Combine this week? Well, next week, sorry.
Yeah, for Michigan State, we got 3 guys this year. So running back Kenneth Walker is the biggest, like, high-profile name. He won a couple awards. The Doak Walker was the running back of the year in college football. He was second in the country in rushing. One of the best, like, running backs that I've seen at Michigan State. He made a lot of NFL guys look silly all year. Really good breaking tackles, making people miss. I think he's got a really good shot to be a second-round pick, probably looking day 2 right now. If he goes out and crushes the Combine, I wouldn't be shocked if he was a late first-round pick, but he's a running back, so the position value isn't always there. But behind him, Jalen Naylor's a wide receiver who has all the athletic tools. I think he's going to test out of this world. He might run in the 4.3s. The problem with him has always been injuries and staying on the field. So he's going to be somebody who tests really well and could sneak into the back half of the draft. And then Conor Hayward is tight end, H-back, fullback, however you want to classify him. He's had a really interesting story because he was a running back for a few years and really wasn't a fan favorite because he's not the dynamic athlete that you would like to have at running back. But this coaching staff switched him over to tight end, and he really took off. Really good blocker, really good route runner, really soft hands. So not a whole lot of teams kind of employ that H-back kind of role, but for the teams that do, I think Conor Hayward's going to be somebody who could make some noise. He's not going to test that well. He's a little stocky. He's a little shorter. He's not going to be the Combine all-star that a lot of people look for, but a big part of the Combine is the interviews and getting to meet the teams face-to-face, and I think that'll be really good for him.
Definitely. Well, we'll expand on some of that in a bit because I do have some questions about some of these guys who are going there. But yeah, like I say, for a lot of guys, the Combine is going to be very important, and we'll get to see that. That is next Thursday to next Sunday. They'll be doing their actual testing, but we do get the fun part first where we get the measurables. We're looking at Kenny Pickett's hand size. We're looking at how many guys are 2 or 3 inches shorter than their schools prescribe, because there are a lot of guys every year who suffer because of bad measurements by the school. But anyhow, we'll move that on. So that's coming up next week, and we'll go through that a little bit more. Just the last bit of news I wanted to go through. I was wanting to do a segment on this last week because we've been following this scene for a little while now. But the HBCU Legacy Bowl took place on Saturday. Now, if you've been listening to us this last month or so, me and Ryan have gone through the HBCU scene quite a bit, going through their Combine. Then you had the last week leading up to it, you've got the All-Star game that happened, took place between Team Gaither, Team Robinson. They were named after 2 former HBCU coaches. I can't remember their full names, do apologise, but ended up being a fairly fun game, although a little bit one-sided out of there. Team Gaither won 22 points to 6. On Team Gaither's side, there were a few standout performances. The offensive MVP of the game was Jeremy Hickbottom. He's the quarterback from Tennessee State. He went 9 of 15 for 72 yards, rushed 5 times for 25 yards, got himself a rush touchdown. And quarterback Bryce Witt from Chowan University went 15 of 21 for 131 yards, a touchdown, rushed 3 times for 32 yards. And then Juwan Carter from Norfolk State, he got 6 throws, 50 yards, 2 for 17 rushes, and a rushing touchdown. It was the quarterbacks who got all the touchdowns this game. In the receiving game, Marquis Mclean from Southern, he had a great game, went 7 for 84. And then on the defensive side, Desean Dixon from Norfolk State, creating a lot of ripples in the draft scene now. I've really got my eye on him. He had a good week at the Senior Bowl, giving some real NFL caliber tackles, a lot of trouble in that week. He had 4 tackles, 1.5 tackles for loss, and a pass breakup. On Team Robinson's side, a few disappointing performances on their offense. Akeel Glass, the big guy, obviously, He only went 4 of 15. Ezra Gray, the running back, he coughed up a fumble in there. Anderson had catching issues. These were some of their bigger guys, and they really struggled to get anything going. But on the defensive side of the game, Antoine Collier, he got the defensive MVP award. He's from Florida A&M. Got 9 tackles, a tackle and a half for loss. And his teammate Derek Merriweather, the linebacker, he got 6 tackles as well. I don't know if you got a chance to see any of it, Rye, but it's been quite fun for me watching this HBCU scene these last few weeks. There's some guys who I think have really given themselves a chance of getting drafted come up, because obviously no one did last year, but I think we could see 2, 3, maybe even 4 names this season.
Yep, there's a few guys out there that did themselves the world of good. I managed to catch the highlights. I think got Dixon, let's say the Norfolk State defensive end. He had the great week at the Senior Bowl and flew straight out for the game. Went up against the likes of Bam Olasene, some of the best defensive tackles that were on offer there. Was really good in the drills, turning around the corner, showing that good bend when he's able to get around the edge and put that on display this game. Like I said, 1.5 tackles for loss. Did a good job getting in the backfield, good in run support as well. Managed to bottle up that offense. Ezra really couldn't get much going on that day there. Marquis Mclean, standout receiver of the week easily. He would test very well, I imagine, in the actual drills. Like I say, he did really well. He's got that nice slender 6'2", 210 frame that's got some ability to put some muscle on it. Tracks the ball nicely. He's a good deep threat, but he's got that good physical strength as well, so he's able to beat out the guys when he doesn't get the most separation. So he's someone that I think has probably got a flyer in the late rounds at the next level. Akil Glass, he had a bad day. Like I say, he decided to skip some of the testing, like I say, just come straight for the game. But 4 of 15, he was put on an immense world of pressure by that defense. Offensive line didn't give him too much help on the day, but the accuracy was an issue. There was passes there and completions to be made, but unfortunately wasn't able to get the timing. Everything looked a bit off. So it's not the great week for him to end on. I feel like he didn't do himself much justice in the game, but going back watching his actual film, I think there's still maybe a chance of him sneaking in, or at least going as an undrafted free agent. So there's a lot of big names there. I mentioned the safety. Let's say, was it Florida A&M?
Yeah, Antoine Collier.
Yep, I know there's 2 Florida names. I believe as well Marquise Bell. He wasn't at the HBCU, but he's another Florida A&M safety. So they've got 2 studs that could both well get drafted. So good pair of defensive backs there coming out one of the smaller schools. So I'd say I agree. I'd say you've got 2 or 3 guys here that have got maybe a chance of sneaking into maybe the 6th round, which would be pretty good for this, because as I said, they don't get enough attention and they don't have a habit of getting many guys picked in the draft.
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, hopefully it's something that really garners steam going forward. But as you say, that there are really some guys here who are going to get themselves noticed. Akil Glass, yes, he didn't have the best game, but he aced it in practice all week. He did well in the NFLPA All-Star game as well a few weeks back. So I think his stock has still remained pretty steady despite the performance on Saturday. And obviously he's got a pro day as well to be able to put himself on there. But Desean Dixon's a really one that's standing out. The edge from Norfolk State. I'm going to do some tape review on him in a few weeks because I'm really, really intrigued now. There's just so much defensive end talent in this draft, all the way down to potentially the day 3's undrafted free agency. It is silly. And obviously Marquis Mclean, he had a wonderful day. He's one of those receivers who, when we first started looking at, the name was there, possibility of something good happening, and he had a really good game. He had some incredible catches actually. It was really fun to watch him, so he's done his stock no end of good, and hopefully, like I say, some of these names are names that we're going to be hearing called soon. Kevin, I don't suppose have you watched the HBCU seen much at all, or is that something you not had a chance to get around to?
Not a whole lot, not as much as I would like to. It is pretty cool to see if you guys follow like the recruiting scene at all, that they are starting to pull in some really good high school players, especially Deion Sanders down at Jackson State. So it's something that's picked up a bit of steam. In college basketball, they've gotten quite a few big names down there as well. So it's really cool to see these like really historic programs that, like you said, recently haven't gotten that kind of shine. I would love to see him kind of burst back onto the scene.
Yeah, absolutely. Ashley was one of our biggest followers on here. He's a Florida State fan, and you should have seen the look on his face when Deion Jackson flipped Travis Hunter a few weeks back. He's like, no, it's not going to happen, and it did. And God, I still feel sorry for him to this day. Florida State have had a rotten year, and then he has to watch their top prospect walk away.
There was like a Twitter Spaces with Florida State fans. It was like 10,000 people in there just melting down. It was fantastic.
Yeah, absolutely not a time to be a Florida State fan there. But yeah, so that's pretty much it for the HBCU. Now we'll see what they do in the combine, and then we'll see what names are called in the draft. But we'll mention a few of the names a bit further as we go forward, just to remind you before the draft occurs. So now we're going to move on to the main sections of the evening. We're going to take a big look at the 2022 NFL draft prospects coming out of the Big 10. But first, and I forgot to do this at the start because I've been that busy trying to make sure our technicals stay there. Obviously, I've mentioned Kevin here is from the Standing Room Spartans podcast. He does it every week. He's just done 2 really great shows on the recruitment classes for Michigan State for next year. I know far much more about them now after listening to those 2 episodes than I did before. Kevin, do you just want to tell us a little bit about your podcast before we crack on with this, just how it came about? Just go for it. The floor is yours.
Yeah, so Michigan State for me, it's basically a second home. My parents went there, my brother went there, I went there, and when you leave the States for Europe, everybody always asks you, oh, what do you miss from home? And of course, it's the people and my family and my friends. But I guess culturally, the biggest thing is sports, because it's a much different scene out here. You're dealing with the time change, and I'm a huge basketball fan, but I just can't watch basketball now because it's on at 2 a.m. And football is one thing that still kind of ties me back to home. So I actually started the podcast. There's been a couple iterations of it, but previously I was with a network. It didn't really work out. But from the Standing Room Spartans, it's been a little over 2 years now. And it's me and my buddy Scott. We both went to school together. We lived together at Michigan State. We had season tickets together, and we just talk Michigan State football all year long. And it's really cool to get the opportunity living in Europe to still have that connection to the fans back home, because you kind of get into this thought bubble with all of your friends that you talk about Michigan State football so much that you all kind of have the same thoughts and the same opinions. And it's pretty cool to have this platform to be able to talk to people who, you're fans of the same team, but you have very different methods of getting there and what you think is best for the program and everything. So it's been a lot of fun. It's grown and grown and grown. It's totally independent, which is a lot of fun. And yeah, we're just rolling Michigan State football all year long. So for any listeners who, I know you guys are NFL fans, if you want to dip your toe into the college game, maybe I can recruit you to the Michigan State side of things. But if not, I'm always happy to talk any football at any level for any amount of time. So happy to be on.
Oh yeah, and I say again, thanks for coming on. It's great to just finally have a guest on here as well, because it has just been me and Ryan before, and it's good that people listen in and do enjoy it. We've got sort of a split here. We do have a few Spartans, we have a few Wolverines, of course. So people may jump in during the night and say things nice or not so nice, but that's all a little part of football there. And
some people make mistakes in their lives, we can't fault them for that.
Exactly. They become Bears fans or Vikings fans or something like that. We can't hold it against them for taking that road, but hey ho. And yeah, thanks to everyone who is joining us, obviously everybody on Twitch and YouTube. If you want to drop any questions in the chat, please do so as we go along, and we'll look at those as we go along. And any playful Michigan bantering, if you want to do, go for it, whatever. We'll deal with it as we go. But like I say, we're going to move on. So we're going to look through the draft classes of all the teams in the Big 10, take a look at the main players in there, and have a look, see what they bring to this draft. So obviously we have a Spartans podcaster on with us, so I'm going to do the rest alphabetically, but we're going to start with Michigan State first. And obviously 2020 or 2021 represented the first time in about 80 years that State didn't have a player drafted wasn't the best year maybe for them, but that's not gonna extend into a second year. You've mentioned your three big guys in there already, so obviously Kenneth Walker the third, Wake Forest transfer, 1,700 yards from scrimmage, 19 touchdowns. He's had an absolute killer year here. I mean, you did talk a little bit about where you reckon his ceiling is and that, but I mean, just what does he bring to this draft? What does he bring to the team who was going to draft him? And are there any ideas that you reckon where he might go, teams who might be interested in him with his skill set?
Yeah, there's been a lot tossed around. I mean, the thing with Kenneth Walker is the knock on him so far has been that he's not a pass catching guy. So he's a first and second down running back. Now, the one thing I'll push back on it a little bit, because it's just not something he was ever really asked to do. So is it that he's not good at it, or is it that he's just never had the opportunity to really do it at a high level? I think he's perfectly comfortable from watching him catching the ball, just physically extending his hands. He has decent hands. Now, is he a Christian McCaffrey route runner or something? Probably not. But, there's a lot of teams out there who could use a guy like him. I think the first team that really comes to mind is the Miami Dolphins, a team that could really use that first and second down running back. But, he's a guy that you just get the ball into his hands and let him do special stuff. He led the country in like every single analytical category of breaking tackles and yards after contact. He had more yards after contact than 90% of college football running backs had yards. So he's a pretty special player. Like I said, the one season that we had of him, every week he had 2 or 3 plays that just your jaw was on the floor wondering how in the world he just did that. So like I said, I think he's a day 2 kid right now, but it depends on a team that's going to take a chance on him, because again, running back is just not a really highly valued position right now. So that's really the only thing holding him back from being a first round, early second round type of guy.
Do you reckon, Ryan? Do you reckon you got the same sort of grading on him there as well?
Yeah, from what I've seen, he's got home run potential, but as you say, he's a north and south kind of one cut guy. Like I say, he doesn't show that flash of being able to. He doesn't ask, as you say, get to catch the ball at the backfield. He doesn't take those swing passes. He doesn't get those screen balls, where I think he'd be very effective if he got the ball in his hands more and gave him a bit of space on the outside. But trying to get hold of him, he's a bruiser. Like I say, he doesn't look like it. Like he may be like 5'10", 5'11", but he's got that good, strong physical frame. He's got big, chunky thighs. He's very hard to bring down. If you don't wrap him up or if you go too high, he will just shake you off. At the next level, I expect it the same thing. He'll still be difficult to break down. He's someone that doesn't go looking for contact, but he's not scared of initiating it. He's able to go through a person if needs be and test their tackling ability. I think he's going to be someone that'll be great on first and second down, try to get those chunk plays, and then if you have to rotate and give him a break. But there's the potential there to be one day in every down back at the next level. Like I say, there's teams out there that have a need for a primary down back that will do the damage or get first down on the first, second downs and then alternate him or take him out in obvious passing situations. But the combine, like the gauntlet drills where you see the balls coming from either side, that's where we'll be looking at him, how his hands are going when he's looking either side, changing direction. So he's got the basics down, he's got everything you want from an NFL back. Just needs to show that variation now. But I agree, he's got the potential to be a very high second round pick. Second, third round, I think he'll be probably one of the second or third backs off the board. He's up there and one of the best of this class. I think he's got a lot of potential after such a great year. He should have got a lot more consideration for even just making the Heisman finals. Should have got more votes.
Oh yeah, we were both on the train that he should have got it, and it was absolutely a shame that he didn't there. But I mean, just to quickly finish off on Kevin, I mean, how big a loss is he going to be for the Spartans going forward? I mean, I guess you have players who leave a big hole there, but this must be the first guy in a while who's left a really massive hole like he's going to.
Yeah, and the thing is for Michigan State fans right now is the offense has been really bad for 5 or 6 years now until last season. And it's that question mark in the back of your head of, well, the offense was great last year, but was it Kenneth Walker? And, we've got a couple of transfer running backs coming in who are pretty good players, but we haven't seen a kid like this in a long, long time. There was Lorenzo White back in the 80s. It's like the only person that people can really compare him to. The one thing is, like, he was only there for 1 year, so it's that, like, flash in the pan. We're definitely going to miss him, and hopefully the passing game can kind of step up a little bit more next year to make up for it, but the running game is definitely going to be hurt without him.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it was an absolute pleasure to watch him this year. There was absolutely no doubt. Just shout out to some of the people. Ken Stouder's in the chat there. Thanks for joining us, Ken. John Stone's just joined in. What up, UK? Love the content. Well, what up, John? We love you listening to our content. That is what makes it worth it. And we've just actually had our best week for listens ever by about some margin. We've had over 800 listens on the podcast this week. Our previous best was 550. So again, to everyone who's listening, just thanks ever so much. We love you all to bits. Moving on. So obviously you said the offense has been a lot better this year. There's a second guy from your offense who's going in this draft. Maybe not as high as Kenneth Walker, but Speedy Naylor, the wide receiver, in the last 2 seasons, he's racked up 1,200 receiving yards, 10 touchdowns. Seen a lot of, especially Lions fans, drafting this guy in their mocks quite late on there, maybe looking for a speed option. What's he bringing to this draft that teams are going to like?
Yeah, he's a deep threat. He's really rounded out his game pretty well over the last couple of years. But at the end of the day, his bread and butter is always going to be, getting behind a defense. There was if anybody isn't familiar with him, just go back and look for his highlights in this past season against Rutgers. He had, I want to say, like 200 yards and 3 touchdowns at halftime. And every single one of them was just quarterback looks up, he's beat his guy deep, launch it downfield, and just runs past everybody. His nickname is Speedy for a reason. But like I said, I mean, the real knock on him is going to be injuries. And, it's 2 parts, right? Number one is you have that red flag on you now that he hasn't finished an entire season healthy in his whole career. He hasn't played more than 10 games in a season. So you have that kind of red flag on you. And the second part is, he just wasn't able to stay on the field and kind of prove that progress that he's making, that, he's shown flashes that he can be more than just a deep threat, but he just hasn't been on the field quite enough to really show that more consistently. So I think he's going to get drafted because, like I said, I think he's going to go to the combine and run like a 4.4 flat. He'll jump 37 inches and somebody will fall in love with the athleticism. And if he can stay healthy, I think he can be a pretty dynamic playmaker for somebody. He's a good returner as well. So for teams who are still looking to keep that guy on the roster, even though the NFL has kind of diminished the return game with some of the rule changes, he's really good in that part of the game too. So, he's that deep threat. You would love to have him on the roster as your 3rd or 4th receiver that can get behind a defense, even, going up against NFL corners. I don't think he's going to have a problem with speed.
Yeah, absolutely. And they say he formed a very formidable partnership with Jalen Reed there as well. I mean, Ryan, you any thoughts really on Naylor? I mean, I know a lot of Lions fans have been drafting him late on in the mocks. Is he someone you'd take a go on, or is it maybe not the type we need this year?
It depends. I'm only taking him low. That's for the perks of the upside because we need a kick and a punt returner. I think where he will elevate his game at the next level could very well be special teams. It's going to be dangerous. For me, when I watch him, great athlete, a bit one-dimensional. He's a bit like Desean Jackson, like he wants to take the roof off of a defense every single player, and he's not always going to be able to do that. When he gets against the elite corners that want to press him at line of scrimmage, where he doesn't have the ability to get that run up and use the speed, that's where I want to see how good he is using his strength, if he's able to win that battle line of scrimmage. But if he gets in behind you, usually, it's pretty much good night Vienna, like you say. He's able to burn past. He tracks the ball so well through the air. Like, he just knows the point where it's dropping down in the breadbasket and he's taking it to the house. Injuries, those always are a red flag. Like I say, the ability to only play 78% of every year and just have those odd niggles that stop him from finishing the season, those will be looked at. But for anyone that's needing speed and they're needing a potential home run deep threat guy that's able to work on his skill tree, work on the short to intermediate routes, I think 5th or 6th round, you may well get yourself a bargain here if he's going to be able to give you good field position on a consistent basis as well. Kick returner, punt returner. I think this is the kind of guy you look for. Like, say, a bit of a, like, say, you got that, I don't want to say Jamal Agnew, like you say, he's got that kind of asset skill set to him, but maybe a bit more polished as a receiver. So there's a lot there to work with. If he can just bulk up a little bit stronger, if he's able to just look after his body as well, I think he's someone that the Lions could see on the day 3.
Yeah, I agree. I think definitely day 3 prospect on him and one to keep an eye out on that last day of the draft. Now, the final of the big 3 from Michigan State who are going, and this is the one that's causing a lot of chatter, especially between us on the Lions podcast. I mean, this is fullback Conor Hayward, or fullback, H-back, tight end, whatever the hell you want to call him. Obviously, brother of Cameron Hayward, who plays for the Steelers. I mean, Kevin, you can answer a lot of questions for us here, but the 2 questions I have is, one, what is he? I mean, we've seen him at the Senior Bowl. He was used in a few bits there. He got a good fourth down conversion for us. But I mean, what primarily getting? Because when he first came to Michigan State, he was a running back. I mainly believe when I was looking at his stats, but he seems to have become more of a receiver in recent years. But yeah, what is he?
We've been trying to figure that out for 4 years now. So, no, he's had the most interesting character arc because, you know, fans were really frustrated with him as a running back because he wasn't dynamic enough to really get through a hole to make somebody miss. And it was just 2 or 3 yards in a cloud of dust. And then this last year, he became like the fan favorite. He had a couple like highlight plays where he would catch a ball out on the edge and then just run over a cornerback. And I think his best role is exactly what he played this last year. It's that moving tight end. You can put him in the backfield. You can put him in line. You're not really going to put him out in the slot. You know, he's not that kind of athlete that he's going to match up against a safety and beat him one-on-one. But if he's out running a route against a linebacker, I think he's got a pretty good shot. And then he's a really good blocker as well. So I think there's 32 NFL teams. There are probably going to be 10 that absolutely fall in love with him. There are going to be another 10 that want nothing to do with him because he doesn't fit the athletic parameters that a lot of teams look for. And then there's going to be another 10 to 12 that are in the same boat that we're talking about right now, just wondering what the hell he is and just saying, like, I don't know if he's there in free agency. Maybe we'll take a shot on him, but, you know, we just don't know what to do with him. So it's going to be a mixed bag because even Michigan State fans, we don't really know at this point after 4 years what exactly he is or what his ceiling is.
Oh, damn. I'm kind of hoping to get some clarification on that. But, I mean, the reason I ask is because obviously, the Lions have just re-signed their own fullback, Jason Combinder, in. We've been utilising him as a tight end this year. He's been playing on the end of the line. He plays at fullback. I mean, hell, he's even got a receiving touchdown this year. He's done that. He's ran the ball. And me and Matt, obviously our main host, were having a disagreement on this the other day. I said now that we've re-signed him, there's no way we're looking at Conor Hayward because obviously the fullback role is a lot of teams will only carry one, and that's at a stretch.
Yeah.
So, does he have?
If they even carry one now, yeah.
Exactly, and he reckons that he's got the skill set to be able to, so we can carry 2 of them. But do you see him being able to hold down like a tight end 3 spot or a wide receiver spot or a running back spot, which is different from the fullback to justify taking him as well, or is he your traditional Swiss Army knife fullback?
Probably not. The one thing I will say for the Lions is Dan Campbell is going to love this guy. Like if you put and he was at the Senior Bowl, so I'm sure they met, you know, in person quite a few times and had like face-to-face one-on-one conversations. And I have a feeling that it's going to get to the 6th and 7th round And Dan Campbell's just going to be sitting there like his leg's going to be shaking. And he's going to say, I know we don't need this guy, and I know we have this position filled, but I want him so bad. Realistically, for the Lions, like you said, I think that role is kind of already filled because I really don't think he is a traditional enough tight end that you could justify rostering him as a pure tight end. Because like I said, he's not a guy you can really put out in the slot as a receiver. He's going to run good routes from inline. And he's a good blocker, but he's not, what's the guy I'm looking for? Fells or something that's like 6'7", 280 and just a road grader, right? He's not that big, so he's not that elite of a blocker. So I really think he has to fill that kind of H-back role. And if it's a spot that's already filled on the roster, it's going to be tough to justify adding another guy in that mold.
Yeah, just quickly going to the chat, John Robinson says, Greetings to you, good sir, thank you for joining us this evening. Ryan, what do you make of Conor Hayward? So, Matt, that's two of us who don't think we're going to sign him now, so you're in a minority. But Ryan, what are your thoughts on him? Is he someone we could do with, or is Cabinda's signing now sort of, for you, torpedoed the prospect of getting him?
I don't think he's going to get drafted at all. So unless he tests out freakishly well, I don't see anyone able to. I don't think he will do. He seems like a jack of all trades, master of none. And when I watch him, I remember Dalton Keene, the H-back at Virginia Tech that the Patriots drafted a year or two ago. He seems very similar, and they've not managed to get him on the field very much that I've seen, which is my worry for him. As you say, he's not strong enough as a runner to take snaps at running back. He's not agile enough to go up against a hybrid linebacker safety in a slot, but he's a solid enough blocker to be a fullback or be a tight end on the end of the line that releases out. I think as an undrafted free agent, Dan Campbell will go like that. He'll bring him in instantly and give him a chance and work him out. Like I say, because you could learn off Cabinda a lot. Like I say, they are very similar. I think the hard work, I think he's got a good story as well. He's worked hard. I think you'll like that about him. But as an actual 7th round pick, I don't think I'd go anywhere near him. I don't know if anyone will, because he doesn't offer enough of anything in particular. But I like the kid. I think maybe one day you can find a niche role for him. But he's not a Kyle Juszczyk. He's not a Pat Ricard. He's not one of those fullbacks that you can keep on the field and give him 30-40% of snaps a game, because there's just not enough for him to do. So can't really warrant a pick on him, unfortunately. But it's going to be fun to watch him, see how teams try to use him.
So I think the end message there is the room's completely and utterly split on him as to whether he's going to get drafted, whether he's not, etc. But they say he is intriguing, and Dan Campbell did speak very highly of him. So, like I say, he does completely fit the mould, and I wouldn't put it past him to try and take him there. Joining the chat reckons, he says tight end in 4th or 5th in the draft. Yeah, a lot of good tight end, like middle round guys. I'm going to talk about some coming out the Big 10 actually, so I can completely see that happening, but it's not going to be Conor Hayward there, I don't think. In terms of any other prospects who are coming out in the draft, there's a few names I've got here, and I'm sorry if I butcher any of these, Kevin, but in terms of guys who could go in there, I've got a list here. So obviously you've got the offensive linemen, you've got Kevin Jarvis, Matt Allen, Hbcu, Blake Buter. Defensive ends, you've got Jakub Panuszuk, Drew Beasley and Drew Jordan. Quarterback Anthony Russo, obviously got knocked off his perch early this season. Linebacker Noah Harvey, and kicker Matt Coughlin, I think it is there.
Coughlin, yeah.
Coughlin. I'm sorry if I butchered any of those names. But is there anyone out of that group who you could maybe see surprising, maybe getting themselves a draft pick or ending up on a practice squad? Are any of them talented enough to get there?
Two guys that I won't get drafted, but I think could surprise somebody as an undrafted free agent, and somebody could fall in love with him. Kevin Jarvis, offensive lineman. It's another guy that he's had the talent. If you would have asked me after his first or second year at Michigan State, I would say he could be a day 3 NFL pick. Has dealt with some injuries, he's had to switch positions a lot is the problem with him. He's a natural guard, and we've had to move him out to tackle out of necessity just with injuries. And I think if he can play guard, he's a good enough run blocker that he could get a roster spot somewhere. That's Kevin Jarvis. And then defensive end, Jacob Panashuk, he is he's limited athletically, but he's a really smart player. He's a really tough player. He's a really physical player. And he's a really technically sound player. He's been starting at Michigan State for 3 full seasons and was a pretty heavy rotational guy as a freshman too. So really experienced, really technically sound. He'll get a shot as an undrafted free agent somewhere. It's just a matter of if he can stick on there. But yeah, limited athletically, but that's the other guy on defense that I think has a shot. The other guys, love him to death. Noah Harvey is nowhere near athletic enough to be an NFL linebacker. Matt Coughlin was a good kicker, but doesn't have the range. And then the offensive line in general at Michigan State has been a mess. So, in general, picking a Michigan State offensive lineman is probably not going to be your best bet. But like I said, Kevin Jarvis has the individual talent to do it if he can kind of find a position. And but yeah, it's a bunch of guys who are pretty limited, and I would be surprised, and I think most Michigan State fans would be too, if any of those guys stuck around in the NFL.
Have you got any names to add out of that one, Ryan, or do you agree with the resident expert there as well?
No, I agree. I remember Anthony Russo. I think he was the Temple quarterback for a few years, he was really, for a few years, he was really good. And I expected him to compete for the starting job when he transferred to Michigan State. Like, that was a good gig, but it's just not sufficed. Like, say, he didn't live up to expectations.
Most people, when he transferred in, thought he was going to start. And then Peyton Thorne took the job from week 1 and played well enough to just hold him off. So I hope Anthony Russo does well. He kind of got... like the transfer portal has been a big thing when you talk about college football, and Anthony Rousseau is kind of one of the test subjects of be careful what you wish for, because you might transfer out to a school that you think, I could definitely start here and build my resume, and it turns out you just used a year as a backup quarterback. So I hope he finds himself in the CFL or something, but it's going to be tough to find a roster when you were just a backup quarterback for a year.
It's good that Peyton Thorne stepped up, though, isn't it? I guess that was that a thing you were expecting as well, or is that maybe taking you a little bit by surprise there as well?
Yeah, me and Scott on the podcast, we were big Peyton Thorne supporters because he had started the final game of 2020. That was his only start of the year against Penn State, and he looked awesome. He was a little bit up and down, but his highs were really high, and so we were hoping he would get the job, but mostly as Michigan State fans, it was just because he has a lot of eligibility left, and Anthony Rousseau would just be a 1-year guy, and then we'd have to look somewhere else too. So as a Michigan State fan, it was for the best that Peyton Thorne took the job, but we do feel for Anthony Rousseau. It's a tough situation to transfer in and then be the backup for the whole year and just have to kind of cheer on the team and know that your NFL hopes just kind of took a big dive bomb. But hopefully he can find a career in football, because he's got a pretty live arm, but the NFL is probably not going to be calling his name.
No, it's a shame. Before we finish on, is there anything else in regards to Michigan State and the draft that you want to get off your chest while we're here? So we'll talk about the new recruitment class later on.
Yeah, not this year. There was a couple guys who decided to come back. Jaden Reed, you mentioned, a wide receiver, is definitely a name to keep an eye out for next year. He's a really dynamic playmaker at wide receiver. And then Xavier Henderson was a safety that we thought was going to come out. He decided to come back as well. Just kind of keep an eye out for that name next year. He's not going to be a first or second round pick, but he's really experienced. He's really been a talented player for us. But yeah, Jaden Reed was the guy. We were really shocked to see him come back. So next draft cycle, when we're on here again, we'll be talking about Jaden Reed as a potential kind of second or third round pick at wide receiver.
Okay, right. Well, let's now that we've had a little deep dive into the Michigan State side of the draft here, let's take a look at some of your fellow teams in the Big 10 as we go along. So I say we're just going to do it alphabetically and go down through. Don't worry, we'll get to the enemy soon enough, and you can have your way with their draft prospects there. But starting it off with Illinois, I mean, there's a very wide variety. Of some teams have almost nobody, some have some. I think these ones fall into the former category, but Illinois, the Fighting Illini or Illini. Is it Fighting Illini?
Illini.
Yeah. I love the name. I can just never pronounce the damn thing right. But yeah, the Illinois Fighting Illini. So I looked through sort of the prospects there today, and they've only really got one prospect in there. So they've got the safety, Kirby Joseph. I had him ranked as the 84th best prospect coming out of the Big 10. So, he's had a decent year in 2021. He's had 12 games. He's got 57 tackles, a tackle for loss, a sack, 5 interceptions, a couple of passes defended, a couple of fumble recoveries there. Outside of that, you've got the inside linebacker Jake Hansen, edge Owen Carney Jr., centre Doug Kramer, the quarterback Brandon Peters, and the tight end Daniel Barker, but they were all ranked well down in the 300s, the 350s, the undraftable category there. I don't know if you played Illinois this year, but have you seen much of Kirby Joseph on there? What team's going to get with him going into the draft?
Kirby Joseph is he's a potential, like a lot of teams are looking for that safety that can play over the top. And he's got pretty good range back there. I saw somebody, I can't remember who it was, I saw somebody mock him in the early second round. That one kind of caught me off guard a little bit. So he's got some fans out there for sure. But he's I know Pro Football Focus was pretty high on him as well. But I do really quick, Jake Hansen, the linebacker, he's gonna get a practice squad invite. He's going to get on a practice squad. He might make an NFL roster. He's just that, if he played in 2005, he would be a third-round draft pick. But unfortunately, he's playing in 2022. The athleticism is a little bit capped, but he's a really, really sound fundamental linebacker that, if somebody's looking for that 4-3 middle linebacker thumper, he could make a roster somewhere, but probably won't be drafted. But just a name to keep an eye on. As Lions fans, I know we're looking for anybody who can help us at linebacker. So I don't think he's an answer by any stretch, but he'll get on a roster somewhere. I could see a shot.
If we don't draft a linebacker early, we're going to have issues. We so desperately need one. Ryan, Kirby Joseph, do you agree with that? Maybe a second round pick. I've got him as a third round here, but I mean, could he go higher? Or what do you reckon?
Yeah, I've seen some of his play. Yeah, I agree that he could play that. He don't fit the Lions because he might be that single kind of free safety general that wants to play over the top. We like to play those 2-3 safety schemes, so I don't think we'll put him on the field on an island like he likes to play on. But when he's put under pressure, and when he's covering the field side to side, he's got really good hips. He's able to change direction quickly. He's able to pick his target, diagnose a play quickly, and try come over the top, or at least undercut it. So he's someone I've seen that is able to help cornerbacks when needed, hence the interceptions. He tracks the ball well. He's got good hand-eye coordination, so he's able to diagnose the route just as well as a receiver is. You wouldn't put him in the box. Like I say, he's not strong when he comes up to help support in the run. But as a guy that you'd leave on the back end, someone that's able to take the ball away, I'd say he's got late day 2, early day 3 potential at the next level for sure.
Yeah, definitely. In regards to the others, like I say, there may be some outside practice squad ones, but not a lot coming out of Illinois there this year. Moving on to Indiana, the Hoosiers. Now, you do have a few more prospects coming out, and there's potentially on the offensive side of the ball. Now, Ryan, I know you've specifically kept an eye on one of their wide receivers. Obviously, that's Frei Fogle. He's ended up playing 45 games for them, been there a while. He's got 158 receptions, 2,231 receiving yards. He's got 14 touchdowns, although he only did get one this year. Not big contributor on special teams either when it comes to return. But, I mean, what have you made of his season? What are his draft prospects looking like coming out there?
Well, this season, they were terrible. Everyone thought Michael Penix Jr. was the next coming of Tutankhamun, but everyone knew he's massively overrated. So was Indiana. But him and I know last year he had Whop Phillier to go with him. They were a good duo. I'd put him primarily out in the slot and work him outwards. He's got a good crisp route tree. Works maybe in that short to intermediate range. As you mentioned, he ain't got that many touchdowns to say he's played that many career games. So he does a lot of his work across the middle of the field. But he's got strong hands. He's able to get separation. He's able to turn upfield and look for the first down marker. Lacks the top end speed, so he won't test incredibly well. He's not a burner. He's got average build. He has had the odd knock. Like I say, he has been in college a few years because he has picked up the odd injury, but he's going to be that kind of receiver 3-4 on an offense. I don't think we'll take much look at him because we've got quite stacked middle ground in there. But he's a guy that you could see on a day 3. Like I say, I think he'll get by those late rounds. But no, he's pretty savvy. Like I say, he's able to get an odd yard after coverage as well. So he's someone he's not bad. Like I say, he's not been on the best offense. I'd like to see him in a better offense with a better quarterback, what he could have done. But he's done well with what he's had to work with, I'd say.
Yeah, and he's probably one who's going to benefit from a good combine and pro day experience there. A couple of the other guys Indiana have got, who you might have heard of, we mentioned this one. So Peyton Hendershut, the tight end, he made the PFF All Big 10 team, surrounded by a lot of Ohio State wide receivers and Michigan linemen. He managed to get his way in there. He had 543 yards, 4 touchdowns on the season. He's got 1,500 yards and 15 touchdowns altogether. So, really a good receiving threat from there, although I know he's had a few legal issues as well, which may put teams off him a little bit. And then you got the linebacker Micah McFadden, who's in there as well. I've seen him towards day 3 of the draft, but he's had 42 games, 216 tackles, 36 tackles for a loss, 14 sacks, 4 interceptions, 4 passes defended, a couple of forced fumbles and a fumble recovery. Now, I need to do this as we're going along, Kevin, but obviously you've played some of these teams this year. I've had a look at some of the players and how they did against you. Obviously you beat the Hoosiers just but Micah McFadden, he got a couple of sacks in on Peyton Thorne. He had a good game against you. What do you make of some of these guys who are coming out for Indiana? So you've had a chance to look at them up and close.
McFadden's a ball player, man. That's a really fun football player to watch. He's all over the field. He has been for a few years now. That's a linebacker that just he fits really well into the modern game. And I think some team is going to really love what they get with McFadden. Plays behind the line of scrimmage really well, shoots gaps, good blitzer. Frei Fogle, just go back and watch, if you're looking for like his ceiling, go back and watch 2020 against Ohio State. He was torching them that whole game. I don't know if the athletic ceiling is quite there, like Ryan mentioned there, but pretty savvy player. I think he'll find a roster spot somewhere. Hendershut as well. It's a pretty talented group from Indiana. And just in general, for people looking at stats or film on Indiana from 2021, that place was just a total shit show. Excuse my language, but that's the only way to explain it. There were guys like fighting on the sidelines. Half of their team is transferred out. It was just a nightmare season for everybody. So don't hold it too much against any of the players from this season.
No, I definitely agree with you. And like you say, there are a few good prospects to keep an eye out from. You're going to get some good value from some of these guys if they go late enough in the draft. Outside of that, there's the defensive lineman Ryder Anderson and the running back Stephen Carr, but they're both well down projections, so you may see them on a practice squad. Now, moving on, and to a team that really disappointed. Well, they were really good, and then they disappointed. We got the Iowa Hawkeyes. They may have had an inconsistent season to end it all and may have got absolutely blown out by the Wolverines in the championship game, but they've got some really good prospects coming up to the draft this year, especially on defense. But the one guy you've got to talk about to start with, and the guy who absolutely 0 defensive tackles in the Big 10 are going to miss going to the draft. They'll be waving him bye-bye, sending him off with a party and everything. That's obviously the centre, Tyler Linderbaum. He was a defensive tackle when he first went there, played his freshman year there, then he turned to centre and just decided that he was going to destroy anybody and everybody who lined up in front of him. I mean, this is a guy who's been drafted I've seen him get drafted as high as 5 or 6. There really is genuine excitement about him there. I mean, just how high is his ceiling, Kevin? I mean, he could potentially be a hell of a player this year. Because I mean, some really good safeties went last year, like Creed Humphrey, etc., and they've done really well in the NFL. But this guy, he's got an absolute ton of buzz about him.
Yeah, he's unbelievable. The thing with him is he's got that wrestling background that everybody looks for, so he really, really understands leverage and how to get under guys and how to move them, because he's a little bit smaller than a lot of the guys he's going against, right? He's like 280, 285 pounds, where he's going up against nose tackles in the Big 10 who are 330, 335, and he had no problem with it, right? If you have a guy lining up across him who's 50 pounds heavier, it's not a problem for Linderbaum. He's a stud. I wouldn't be shocked to see him go in the top 10.
Yeah, Ryan, do you agree with that? I mean, he's going to be a guy to watch. He's going to go very early, and some teams going to get very lucky with him.
Oh yeah, there's a few teams that should consider him, like the Falcons, like picking in that top 10 to 13 spots. Like that's kind of, I think, where he should go. Somewhere like that should really consider him. He's a mauler. He's someone that's not got the biggest stature in the world, but he uses his weight. He knows how to gain. He knows when to pull down, when to push up, when to get underneath. He uses your body and mass against you because he's not able to use all of his own. Because he understands nose tackle. He understands what they want to try get around him, underneath him, and that enables him to then negate that, moving to the other side of the ball. He is like 1A, 1B, like say that top centre in the draft, else like Alec Lindstrom. But I think this guy will be taken first. Like say, I think he'll go top 15. Anyone with dire need and all line, he'll be a day one starter. Like say, he's very solid, very experienced, and has been just one of the key parts of a dreadful Iowa offense. I watched Iowa so many times this year. They are awful.
Yeah, they featured very heavily in some of our reviews, didn't they? And I remember saying that, even if the offense could be half decent, that could be a good side. And they couldn't even manage half decent. They were truly atrocious. And that game against Michigan was just like, oh, God.
The best case scenario for an Iowa offense is scoring like 24 points. It's pretty rough. And that's a historical problem for them.
And half of those points are probably scored by the defense,
yeah.
pick sixes, etc. I know. We'll get onto that now. So obviously, Tyler Linderbaum's the big attraction to watch from there. You've also got Tyler Goodson, the running back. He had 1,200 yards, I think about 8 touchdowns. So he might provide an enticing prospect for someone. But some of these defenders they've got coming up here. You've got Dane Belton, the safety. I mean, his 2021, he's had a great year. 46 tackles, 3 for a loss. He's got 5 interceptions, 7 passes defended. He's got a sack as well. You've got the experienced cornerback, Matt Hankins. He's played 44 games for them, 212 tackles, only 2.5 for a loss, so not a guy who comes forward too much, but he's got 6 interceptions, 21 passes defended, and a fumble recovery. I mean, those secondary guys are some of the best in the country there, and these guys are going to provide really tempting development prospects for the right team, I guess, aren't they? I mean, you were lucky enough you didn't get to face them this year, so
yeah. Yeah, and the scariest part is the best one of the group, Riley Moss, decided he's going to come back to Iowa. So yeah, Hankins specifically was a guy that I really loved watching this year. He's a stud. That Iowa defense, it's really well coached every year. They have defensive backs going into the NFL every year. This year is definitely no exception.
Absolutely. And then you've got the defensive lineman as well, Zach Van Valkenburg. He's in this draft, so he's been there. He's had 2 seasons of production, 88 tackles, 23.5 for a loss, 9 sacks, a forced fumble, 4 fumble recoveries. In a year when the defensive line is stacked in some areas, it's guys like this who've got a lot of production. They're not getting a lot of attention, but again, this might provide good value, Ryan.
No, I like Van Valkenburg. I've seen him play a few times. I think he's a day 3 guy currently. That's not big. That's no reflection on him. That's just because this deep is a very large pool of defensive linemen. I would love to send a 5th or 6th round pick on him if he slides. I would very much. I think I've seen a lot of him in that mould. I watched him a few times. He looks he's not the biggest, but I saw a bit like Antony Zettel. There was some rawness on the edge. He's able to get in the backfield, secure those tackles for loss. Like I say, he's someone that's able to work inside, but primarily go out too. He was a good part of not the best defensive line, but he was able to get his defensive backs, buy them time, put quarterbacks off their throw, get in passing lanes. I saw a lot as well. He's got the IQ that he knows if he can't be beaten, he gets up and he puts his hands up as well to try to tip a pass, which I like. So he knows when he's not going to win the battle, so he'll try and get the war instead. And to go back defensive backs, it's not hard pressed to say Iowa in the last few years are one of the DBUs. They have produced some great defensive backs, and as I mentioned, when we did our half mocks in the season, I sent Riley Moss to the Lions before I thought he was going to declare this year. 4 interceptions, 2 pick sixes. He's going to be a stud to watch next year, like I say, and he is really good. Dane Belton, I've seen him, hammer coming from the safety position. He will happily come up in the box and be a thumper, but he's also got that good. I think it was Iowa State where the turnovers really changed the game. He picked off Purdy 2 or 3 times. I think he might have got one, but this is a good class. This is a genuinely good class for Iowa, even though they let their season slip so bad.
Yeah, I mean, do you agree, Kevin? Is Van Valkenburg down there more just because of the depth of class rather than his play? Because, I mean, those are good figures that you've got there, especially on a team, let's say, where the D-line's not the best in the world. Let's say it is.
Yeah, and Iowa players typically aren't sexy, right? It's not the sexy name that's going to get pushed up the board. So, he's going to be a good value for somebody down there.
Yeah, definitely. We've got a Let's Go Kevin in the chat from Connor Flair. Yeah, indeed.
That's my boy.
Now, yeah, thanks for joining us, Connor. Do appreciate it there. So that's really the main group from Iowa there. You got the kicker coming up as well, Caleb Shudak. I can't remember what I remember.
He's a stud. It's always tough to project a kicker, but he's a good one.
Yeah, definitely. Unfortunately, Ryan's got his favourite kicker. He's a Nick Skiba fan from Wake Forest, and he's the only kicker who exists. He's the only kicker who exists in college football for Ryan. So, but yeah,
I don't blame you. That's a good one to latch onto.
Yeah, definitely. So yeah, Caleb Shudak, the kicker, he's declaring, and then their offensive guard Kyler Schott is as well, but he's projected somewhere down near 400. So don't know how much we're going to see of him. Moving on next, we've got Maryland. We had to get this pronounced during the season. I kept calling it Maryland. I have to. I don't know why it's called Maryland, but hey, it is. They've been a fun team to watch this year. Obviously, Taulier is now the quarterback there now. He had a bit of an up and down year. We were really bigging him up at one point, but they've got a few prospects again coming up. Not the deepest class there, but maybe the name that stands out most as an intriguing development guy in there. Well, there's really 2 of them, but one on both sides of the ball. So you got the tight end Chigozie Okonkwo. Again, Kevin, I hate to bring this one up, but when you played them, he had a great day. He went 8 for 112, 2 touchdowns. Although it's fair to say the passing defense last year was the massive Achilles heel for you guys there. But he sort of had a day there. I mean, what did you see from him that day that caught your eye, if anything?
Yeah, unfortunately, a lot of people had a day against us passing last year. But no, athletically, he's as gifted as any tight end you'll see coming out in the recent years. The thing with him was it was a big story during the broadcast of the game. I remember bringing it up, and I've seen it since, is he had some heart issues that kept him out before last year. So his full career production isn't what it could be. And I'm sure that's something that's going to be something that scares away some teams. There was some issue. I think it was myocarditis. I'm not 100% sure, but there were some heart issues. So that's something that's obviously really serious, and some NFL teams are probably going to just avoid altogether. But athletically, again, the kid is an absolute stud, and he made quick work of the passing defense for Michigan State, but he's one of those 240-pound guys that runs like a 190-pound guy.
Yeah, definitely. Ryan, I know you're not as high on the tight end class this year as I am, but this guy's another one who fits into that sort of middling group of tight ends who could potentially be really good this year, but obviously there's a lot of development amongst all these guys. Oh
yeah, in general, the tight end class, like I say, there's some fantastic athletes. There's some great blockers. There's some true pass-catching threats. There's a small minority that kind of bring that all together. Like I said, I remember watching this game now. Maryland were fun to watch last year. They weren't very good, but they're fun to watch. Talia.
That's the story of Maryland football. They're not very good, but they're fun to watch.
Talia is either really good or really bad. Like, you don't get much in between. It's such a pass-heavy offense. Like, they just live to die by the pass every week. So his numbers might have been inflated at times, but he won't be used like that at the next level. I think it'll be the blocking. Like I say, if he can use that whole 240-pound frame at the next level to sustain blocks on the offensive line, and then use that ballerina-like nice agility in offense where he looks smaller than he plays, he could be a potential stud. Like I say, he could go day 3, and he could be someone that is that option for tight end 2 or 3 on the team. So it could be someone that could be one of the darlings, one of the sweethearts of the draft. If he tests well, though, they will get the medical and they will get the doctors looking at him to give him a full clean of health. That's the only thing that could stop him.
Yeah, definitely agree with that one. Once Trey McBride's off the board and he's the tight end love this year, you're down into development territory, but a lot of potentially really exciting guys. Don Burr is in the chat. He says, yo, what up, Don Burr? Thank you for joining us as always. The other guy I got sort of mixed in for this Maryland class here for the draft, and I know this because our own Oliver Hodgkinson over here picked up on him, and he seems to be quite high on him. That's their safety, Nick Cross. He's had a productive career for them, 134 tackles, 5.5 for a loss. He's got 4 sacks, 5 interceptions, 10 passes defended, 3 forced fumbles. The one thing I saw on the tape, especially that he put up, this guy zips around and never stops. He's seductively fast, I think, is the thing there. But this is, again, another guy who provides a lot of potential upside for the right team there. Have you seen much of him, Kevin?
He's a Swiss Army knife kind of guy. I think a lot of teams are going to like him because he can cover a tight end, he can cover slot receiver, and he can also fit in the run game. So he's a fun player. I think he'll find a spot somewhere.
Ryan, do you see much of him either?
I've watched odd Maryland game this year. Yeah, I think primarily he'll start as a special teamer, where I think I'd expect him to excel. You'd put him on a kickoff team, he could be a gunner. So he's someone that will provide great value, which is enough to sustain a roster spot. And then if you mix him in on the field as well, good tackler, coming downhill, can pretty hard, good nose for the ball as well, force fumbles. So he's someone that knows how to finish a play. Safety pool, there's a good group of guys, and then it just kind of drops off to the next level. So I think he'll get a shot at making a roster this year.
Yeah, this is the argument that we've been having now just for ages and ages in regards to Kyle Hamilton. It's just like, I think this safety class does drop off quite a lot, and that's why we need to go after him there. But again, there are potentially these guys who can come out and get the job done. So is he. But that's enough of Maryland for now. I remember us predicting them to beat Iowa, and they got absolutely rinsed by Iowa. I think they gave up
that was a boat race, yeah.
They gave up over 50 to them, and like you say, if an Iowa offense gets 24, that's a good day. And they dropped 50 on them. You're just like, for God's sake.
I think Talia had like 6 picks in that game. It was rough.
And me and Ryan staked our reputations on that game. We picked the upsets of the week, and we said no, or at least I did. Did you do as well, Ryan? I'm sure we both did.
I did, yeah, because Sam Petrus, I was just like, he won't do anything. He never does anything ever.
He's terrible.
Yeah, and then it just ended up they dropped 50 on them, and just like, oh yeah, well, what do we know about everything? Yeah, that's Maryland. Now we move on to the rivals, the Wolverines, and obviously you were able to get another second straight win over them this year. I mean, I guess just your season in general was a season of highs and lows. Obviously they started off so well, and then they knocked the Wolverines off. I mean, I just guess any win over them is special.
Oh yeah, no. One of the really cool things about college football is the rivalries. Because in the NFL, the biggest rivalries, a lot of them, you look at the Eagles and the Cowboys. I mean, they're separated by 1,500 miles, and Michigan State are separated by about 30 minutes of highway. So, we interact like when I was living back home in Detroit, you're interacting with these people every single day at work, at school. So beating them is the sweetest thing, especially growing up. They kicked our ass every year, and it was tough. I went to school and I was 12 years old, just getting demoralized by all my friends, and now we've been kind of the bullies in that rivalry recently, so it's been a lot of fun. But yeah, 2 in a row. The first 2 for our new coach, Mel Tucker. So he's 2-0 against him. And Jim Harbaugh's coming back, and I can say Michigan State fans aren't too upset about it.
Oh no, Ryan called it. He said that he was rinsing them for money, and lo and behold, he comes back, and his contract's absolutely huge. But in terms of the team he put together last year, obviously it was a pretty decent one. They made it all the way to the semi-finals, and then unfortunately got obliterated. But hey-ho, what can you do about it? But their draft class, obviously, you've got to talk about the 2 edges to start with. Obviously, Aiden Hutchinson, presumptive number 1 draft pick possibly, and guy who has set off numerous arguments between Lions fans and especially us on the podcast about whether he should be drafted or not. And then you've got David Ojabo. Obviously, he's the 1-year wonder there. 35 tackles, 3 passes defended, 11 sacks, 5 forced fumbles in a year. He's had a year and a half. What would you make of these 2 edges coming out? Obviously, both of them are projected first round. Good caliber there, but what do you reckon with them?
I wish Aiden Hutchinson played somewhere else, because I would love him as a football player if he didn't play for Michigan. I think people are underestimating his ceiling. I think it's because he's a white defensive end. There's he's got a high floor and a low ceiling. And that's the tag that gets put on every white defensive end, right? Or every white football player, basically. But no, Hutchinson, he's a really, really good player. Good pass rusher, good run stuffer. He's really dynamic athlete, and I think some people are going to be pretty surprised at his combine numbers. I as much as I hate it, if the Lions took him at number 2, and I was forced to root for him, I think he would make it pretty easy, to be honest. He's just a damn good football player, to give him credit. Ojabo, I think because he's getting picked in the first round in a lot of these mock drafts, it does scare me a little bit, because he's a situational pass rusher. He's not a complete, well-rounded defensive end the same way Hutchinson is. And rushing the passer has never been more valuable than it is right now, but he is a pretty specific player. And like you said there, he only really has 1 year of huge numbers, and is that a large part because he was rushing opposite Aiden Hutchinson, who was taking a lot of double teams. So if I was somebody that had him getting drafted, right, if he fell to 32 and we ended up taking him because we somehow passed on a pass rusher with our first pick, I would be a little bit worried, because he's a situational pass rusher, and I don't know how complete and well-rounded his game is at this point.
Yeah, that number 2 pick is such a thing. I mean, I'm team safety here. I know a lot of people don't like that, but I don't know what's going on. Ryan, what do you reckon? Obviously, with the 2 edge rushers, I mean, Ojabo, 1 year, as Kevin said, he's been opposite Aiden. Is that enough to warrant a first round tag on him? And what about Aiden himself?
See, Ojabo is hard to work out. Like you say, he's had this 1 year of production where he's benefited from having someone on the other side drawing the double teams and the blocks. So he's been a byproduct. He's been a benefactor of Hutchinson getting so much attention. Taking him in the first round for me, big no-no. I won't even take him at 32. That worries me. I've seen him as high as the Falcons pick. Say that 11 to 13, 14, and that I think is crazy. But then also look at Jason Owe. He did nothing at Penn State and had a good rookie year. I never thought he would have gone in the first round because he didn't have many career sacks or much stats. So I feel like they helped one another out. So
yeah, when you're like a 260-pound dude running a 4.4, that'll help.
Yeah, I think it'll all be about Ojabo, how he works out well, and the right team. I agree. He's not going to be an every down player. He will rotate out. He isn't the best, I don't think, in run support or setting the edge and containing the run. I think he'll be someone that will want to get after the. He might be like a Micah Parsons. He gets after the quarterback, and that's what you ask him to do. If he's able to do that successfully, carve out a role for himself. Whereas Hutchinson is a little more well-rounded. I was happier in the run game as well, better at setting the edge and helping up and supporting his people on the inside. So he's more of a team player, but still technically gifted as well to be his offensive lineman, rips, pulls, hands, using more technique than pure athleticism, and we're still able to get the job done at the next level. Everyone knows I'd like Kyle Hamilton. If we take Hutchinson at 2, I won't be upset. I'll be like, that's good. I expect him to be an instant upgrade because Aquara got that lingering injury. Trey Flowers, don't want to see him anywhere near the state of Michigan whatsoever. Get rid of him. But yeah, so he'll be a day one starter with Hutchinson. And I don't care who he supports. I don't care if he's never been a Lions fan. Like I say, he's a blue chip. And I expect he will put in a real good shift. And he'll win the fans over very quickly.
I think Hutchinson getting taken at number 2. The thing is, it would be pretty similar. The problem is it's at number 2, but it would be pretty similar to when we took Ragnow a few years ago. It's one of those picks that you're not like, oh my God, this is crazy, but it's just like, all right, yep, good pick, good player, move on to the next one. Like it's just kind of that guy that is going to be a good player. And unfortunately, he's a Wolverine, but damn good football player. I don't know what I can say.
I think the only thing, as far as I'm concerned, is he a number 2 caliber pick? Because there's no quarterbacks round this year. Is he like in the Jadeveon Clowney territory or Myles Garrett when they were taken up there? That's the problem for me, because with a lack of true quarterbacks and guys at the top, I feel like the guys who are right at the top, they're really good players, but are they worthy of the picks there? I don't know.
To be honest, it's not the year to be drafting number 2, unfortunately. But It is a good year to have 2 first-round picks, but it's not a good year to have one of them be number 2.
But it's a good year. It's a good year. We've got both New York teams just behind us with multiple picks, and they may be stupid enough to trade.
I feel safer taking Hutchinson at 2 than when we took Ezekiel Ansah, because that was a boom or bust pick that turned into a bust. This feels a lot safer than that, even though he's going a few picks earlier. So that's the only consolation for me.
Yeah, agreed. Det Fat Man is in the chat. Thank you for joining us, Det Fat Man, as always. He has asked us a question. I'll finish off this Michigan summary and then we'll quickly get onto that. But we've talked about the 2 presumptive first-round picks there. There is potentially a third one, but this is because we're in Wolverine circles and they're really hyping their guys up here. That's obviously the safety, Dax Hill. He's been projected very high in some mocks, maybe a bit too much for my liking, but he's had himself a good career. He's had 3 years, 150 tackles, 7.5 for a loss, just a half a sack, but 4 interceptions, 15 passes defended, 3 fumble recoveries. I mean, one's a bit too rich for him here, but maybe as a good development guy a little bit down the road, possibly, but definitely not 1.
I think he's better than Jabril Peppers was coming out, like as a Michigan, like that versatile Michigan safety. So Jabril Peppers was a first-round pick, but he was also just really hyped his whole career. Daxton Hill has been a little bit more under the radar, but I wouldn't be shocked if he slipped into the back end of the first round. I think he's a really good player. He can cover tight ends. He can cover running backs. He's even taken a few snaps at corner too, so he's a pretty versatile piece. I think he's better than Jabril Peppers was coming out, so I think somebody will definitely take a shot at him at the latest in the middle of the second round. But I think Daxton Hill is a legit NFL prospect.
Ryan?
First is way too rich for my blood with Dax Hill, unfortunately. I've got him as like the third safety I'd take, like Hamilton. I like Brisker, who we'll come on to. I'm high on him. Like I say, if we have to take him, if we can trade back from 34, which I think we probably will be able to, I think someone will definitely want that pick, because this this is going to be a stacked second round. So we'd trade that pick back a few spots. I'd want to take him then, get a bit more capital. Like I say, as you mentioned, he's played in multiple other positions as well. He'll be one of those key gadget pieces that you can move around the defence. So it won't surprise me if we do take a liking to him. And I'll be working on that. I'll be fine in the second round.
Yeah, absolutely. The other guy I just wanted to mention before going through the others, and this is a guy who quite interests me actually, depending on where he goes though. Their right tackle, Andrew Stuber. This guy, I mean, he's an absolute man-mounted. He's 6'7", 340 pounds. He's in the all Big 10 team. Just coughed up one sack in 2021. That was against Georgia when, quite frankly, I think every offensive lineman in football coughed up a sack to Georgia last year, the way that front seven played. 350 pass blocking snaps. It was just the one sack he gave up, 3 quarterback hits, 6 quarterback pressures, and obviously Michigan ran the ball incredibly well last year through him there. I mean, the tackle class, he could potentially be, one of the better guys coming out this year. I think he's got the frame, he's got the ability to do it. I mean, I don't know, what do you think, Kevin, about him? I quite like him from what I've seen.
Their whole offensive line was just dominant all year, so he's probably the best of the bunch. And I can't speak too much to him like personally as a player, but if you're taking a Michigan offensive lineman that was on the starting lineup this year, you're probably going to be in good shape.
Yep, like I say, I'm not opposed to Lions spending capital on offensive lineman. If he can play a bit of guard while he's training, if he wants to play tackle at the next level, if we need him to move him around or fill in, like I say, he's going to be good. We want to run the ball, and he's good at running the ball. They were good as a unit. They were strong in run support and run blocking, so that's where I think I'd like to see him excel and expect that huge frame as well. Like I say, he looks like a bit of a mauler. He was someone that'll stand out on the end of our line, so I'd be like I say, if he's one of the later rounds, I'll take a flyer on him.
I think he's in round 3 territory at the moment, so possibly, we've got quite a few picks at the top, but we'll see.
Yeah, we've got a compensation pick, so 3rd round.
Yeah, well, I mean, we've got the first, and as long as the first and the seconds go on bona fide starters straight away, you never know. So with the rest of the Michigan class, you got the running back Hassan Haskins, outside linebacker Josh Ross, the defensive lineman Chris Hinton, the safety Brad Hawkins, cornerback Vincent Gray, their center Andrew Vastardis, and their place kicker Jake Moody. I mean, I know they're your rivals and all, Kevin, but is there anyone from that group who you expect to do better than they're being given, they're maybe hyped up for, or anything at this moment in time?
I will say, I have to play the anti-rival here, but Vincent Gray, if anybody's trying to mock him into somewhere, just avoid him like the plague. He's gotten torched year after year by Michigan State specifically. He's. I know corner is a tough position, but he's not it. Hassan Haskins is a really good running back. That's a guy that I think you could probably take in the 5th or 6th round, and be pretty happy about it. Though I liked Haskins as a player.
Ryan, anyone else you fancy out of the rest of the Michigan class?
I saw Brad Hawkins play the other safety, Dax Hill's teammate. He looked pretty good when he was on the field. I don't know how his play will project to the next level, but I'm not opposed to picking 2 safeties or picking them up later rounds. I'm the other way on Haskins, great college player, but for me, when I look at this running back class, I don't see it at the next level. I've got a lot of backs ahead of him at the next go. I don't think he's going to be a standout NFL back. I think he'll be a part-timer, a rotational, someone like that. So, but rest of it is not too much to say.
No, expect to see a lot of Michigan players early on, and then maybe not so many later on. Maybe more on practice squads out the rest of them. So that's everything really for the Wolverines there. Just before we move on, like I said, Fan Man dropped us a question in the chat. Now, obviously, we've had the chatter this year, this week. The Commanders said they were going to let Chase Young go, possibly for a quarterback in there, and a lot of Lions fans have been hypothesizing, what if we got Chase Young and the number 11 pick, and we gave up the number 2 pick and Jared Goff? I mean, Ryan, maybe quickly, is that a deal you'd do? Would you take that?
No, I'm not giving them 2. They can have Goff from 32, and I'll just take Chase Young.
Yeah, I think I'd agree there.
I'd give up 2 for Chase Young.
Oh, really?
Yeah. That kid, that is, we're talking Big 10 prospects. That might be the best, like, including the Bosas, that might be the best Big 10 prospect we've had in a long time. That kid was an absolute freak coming out of Ohio State. And I know he's had the injuries, but no, I think so highly of Chase Young. That, you compare what you would get out of like an Aiden Hutchinson that we were just talking about it too. I think Chase Young is just so much more gifted, and I would do that. I don't know if they would love Jared Goff enough to make that deal, though.
I feel like that's possibly the sticking point there.
Right.
Potentially something to it. So, if you were hoping for a conclusive answer there, fan man, you've got one definite yes, one definite no, and one in the middle. Hey ho, make of that what you will. But anyway, we'll come back to the Big 10 classes. So next up, we've got the Gophers, Minnesota. Obviously, unfortunately, lost most of their running backs to injury throughout the season. Bless them, some pretty bad ones in there as well. But they ended up having a decent season. Just ended up missing out on getting to the championship game by about 1 game. I think 3 teams finished on 6 wins in that little group there. But they've got a couple of very interesting prospects. Now, obviously, the big one. Our friend Lucci did a review of him lately. He's one of his favourite players in the draft, and this is the reason we don't want to go edge at 2. There's so many good guys who are coming out here. This edge class is absolutely stacked. It's not a lie to say it's stacked as anything. And the boy wonder himself from Minnesota, Boy Maffei, his 2021, he had a hell of a season. 34 tackles, 10 of which were for a loss, 7 sacks, forced fumble. He balled out in the Senior Bowl. I know he had a forced fumble in that, he had sacks in that, he had tackles for loss. He made the life of offensive tackles that week absolute hell. I mean, talking about the edge quality coming out of here, for a guy like Boy Maffei, if he reaches his potential, you're getting a guy potentially who's as good as these guys who are going in the top 10, are they not, Kevin?
Yeah, again, I don't know why you would take David Ajabo in the first round when you could take Boy Maffei probably in the second round. I think he might even be the better player and pretty similar, right? They're kind of situational pass rushers, but yeah, he's a pretty special kid.
Ryan, what do you think with Maffei?
I really enjoyed watching what I saw at the Senior Bowl. To be honest, I'd seen Minnesota a few times this year, severely disappointed with them. Like, their year went bad, but obviously they had injuries which didn't help. Mohamed Ibrahim should have been their star of this draft class, but he's returning because of the injury. He's going to be a special back in the NFL, I think, and at college. So, but Maffei, I agree. That late second round, I think, could be a nice place to pick him up. Once he's a good all-round guy. I'd say he's someone that could do with a really good workout. He's fresh, he's current, he's in everyone's mind because they've seen him at the Senior Bowl. So I'd rather wait around and go with him, agree, other than taking a punt on a Jabo who's had that 1 year of inflated numbers.
Yeah, I mean, this edge class hanging around the edge of the first and the start of the second, I think it's just something completely special. You've got Onagbare, you've got Cameron Thomas, you've got so many of these guys here that are just going to provide such good values for players. And Maffei is going to be right in there. Now, the other one from Minnesota I circled out for this year because, again, so much potential there. That's their offensive tackle, Daniel Falele. Now, this guy is absolutely huge. He is 6'8" and 387 pounds. Now, I thought I was big. I'm 6'4" and about 260. This guy would eat me as a snack. And I'm quite a big dude. But I saw something from Mathbomb the other day with his RAS things. He said he would be the biggest guy drafted on paper since his record started in 1987. Anyhow, he has a wingspan of 86 inches. It's just like this guy could probably cover 2 spots on the defensive line all on his own. But I mean, you watch the tape with him, and for a guy his size, he is explosive and he moves quickly. Big men like that shouldn't move as quick as he does. And he even scored a rushing touchdown in Minnesota's last game of the year. And I'm not surprised, because if you're a 230-pound defensive end seeing a 380-pound tackle running at you with a football, you just got to dive out of the way. You're not even going to try and stop a guy like that. But, I mean, he looks so impressive. For his size, his speed is unbelievable. And if a team gets the right thing out of him, they're potentially going to get a hell of a pick here. Because he's not drafted particularly highly. He's not projected particularly high.
Yeah, he's from Australia, too, which, he's had an interesting story. But it's one of those deals for me that if the second round goes by and nobody's taken him, it's just a classic case of NFL teams like overthinking this process, right? You have this enormous guy who's really athletic for his size, and is he the most technically sound player in the world? Probably not, but like you said, he might be the biggest dude who has ever come out. So it's just one of those things that if the second round goes by and nobody's taking a shot on him, I would be shocked.
Yeah, agreed.
From what I've seen from Minnesota, pass blocking, like the whole line just kind of struggled as a unit. Like say, Tanner Morgan didn't get much help, even though he's not the best. Run blocking going forward, he'll be an absolute menace. Like say, he's a proper mauler bruiser. Just get behind him, lead the way for him. And like say, when he's able to then get out and get to the next level, deceivingly skillful and fast for someone of that size and that weight. He's got pretty light feet on him, so I think he'll be good at moving out as well to next level. So I think there's a lot there to work with. Like I say, he's going to be one of those day two guys that you pick up at the next day, and the next level, he could be a mauler on an offensive line on a strong run heavy line. Like I say, and then kick him out. Could be like say Sewell could get him out on the screen. He's lightly athletic, and then get him blocking linebackers and safeties to the next level.
Yeah, I mean, I think someone's going to get crazy good value with him. Like I say, you just don't see guys his size move the way they do. And there's hand usage as well. The amount of times these edge rushers sort of get hands on him and he just sort of karate chops them off. And the amount of guys you see nosedive just because they lose their balance and their head's in the sand. It's quite impressive.
I'm pretty sure I saw, too, he has like 11-inch hands. So, like, when he gets his paws on you, it's over.
Exactly. And because he can move so well, it's not even like the speedy guys have trouble getting around him as well. So he's certainly one to keep his eye on. I mean, the whole Minnesota class here it's trench warfare. So you've got those two guys on either side. You've got the defensive lineman Niles Pinckney. You've got the defensive lineman Asizi Otomewu. And then you've got the offensive tackle Blaze Andries all as well. So those are all trench guys from both sides there. Are any of those others someone you've kept an eye on, or are they just maybe going to be let go in later on or undrafted?
Not particularly. Nobody really stands out.
No. Okay, we'll move that on from Minnesota. So we'll move it on now, and we go to Nebraska. Actually, Nebraska have got a lot of guys I know, especially we like this year as well. So starting it off, the main guy here, so you've got the linebacker Jojo Doman, 208 tackles, 26.5 for loss, 5.5 sacks, 3 interceptions, 15 passes defended, 9 forced fumbles and 3 fumble recoveries. He is literally a fumble machine, and the thing I love about him is his coverage. His coverage grade since 2020 is 91.0. That's second only to Auburn cornerback Roger McCreary. I mean, I know this guy has some issues with him, but I mean, especially with the Lions, we have not had a coverage linebacker since time immemorial, and I think if you can sort of iron out the issues with this guy, he's exactly the sort of player that you're looking for in this draft. Coverage linebackers, they're like gold dust.
Yeah, I was just going to say the Lions. The Lions would love this kid. That's all.
Go on, Rye.
I could see someone trying to put him back at safety where he used to play. Like I say, I feel like that's where he gained all these good coverage strengths. But the tackle speaks themselves. So he has worked on the run support. He has worked on finding a nose for the ball, the force fumbles, the tackles. So he's definitely got better working in the box as well. So, and he's by far probably the most experienced coverage linebacker. So I think that'll be a premium. That is what you really look for these days, because he's someone that you'd like to think could pick up a tight end or get someone out the slot. So I think he could go higher. He might be inflated, his draft stock.
Definitely. And one of your favourite players also resides in here, obviously their wide receiver, Samori Toure. he had himself a good day. I think it was not the Senior Bowl week, it was the other one. Was it the Shrine Bowl he was at? He was at
I think so.
He grabbed himself a couple of touchdowns there, but I mean, what do you like about him so much?
Oh, he looks like a number one. Like I said, I hope when it comes to the measurements that he is true to his size, because he's nearly 6'4". He's got a long, rangy frame. He has got a good body of work. Spent a few years at Montana Grizz at the FCS. Broke a lot of records. He is an outside deep threat. He's got a nice touch as well. Tracks the ball really well. Took the gamble on transferring to an FBS school because he wanted to make his resume look a little bit better. Landed at Nebraska. Had a really good year for them. Like, they weren't a good side. Like I said, they struggled now under Scott Frost for a few years, but he was one of the bright sparks on the offense. I think he got a good 700-800 yards in an offense that struggled to move the ball downfield. He's the kind of threat and the guy you look for. He's got a good frame that could put a little bit of weight on. I think he will probably slide right in the later rounds, but he's someone you could pick up to be a proper gem. I think the Lions could make a really good project out of him because he's what you look for an outside guy.
Well, yeah, definitely 5 100-yard performances he had this year, but not against Michigan State. They only let him go for 4 yards and 1 reception there. They did something right against him that day.
Shockingly, the Michigan State pass defense actually stepped up.
Yeah, and Adrian Martinez is probably not the best quarterback in the world either.
Well, that's probably the biggest selling point for Torrey, right? It's you can put up 800 yards with Adrian Martinez at quarterback. Imagine what he could do with anybody else.
No, absolutely. Yeah, like you say, that's probably one of the big selling points there for him as well. So the other sort of receiving option there was starting to garner a lot of interest as well. Now, I must admit, I've not heard his name mentioned much, and I'm wondering, Kevin, if you can shine a bit more of a light on him. But their tight end, Austin Allen. Now, this guy I think he's about 6'9" or something stupidly tall, but this year he's had 602 yards and a couple of touchdowns. The catch radius of this guy is absolutely ridiculous, and given his size as well, he blocks really well, but he's a name that had not come on the tight end radar for me for a while. Have you seen much of him? What sort of player is he?
Well, Nebraska fans, from what I've seen on Twitter and stuff, it was one of those guys that they kept wondering why Scott Frost wasn't featuring him more. Because, like you said, he's like 6'8", 6'9", whatever it is. I'm interested to see what he actually weighs in at. But, yeah, he's somebody who will just box you out at the catch point. He had, I think, a couple 100-yard games this year. So, an interesting prospect, if not just for the size. But I'm double-checking right now. He had like 600 yards this year, like you said. So, but I do know, I remember going into the season kind of listening to a lot of preseason stuff from different like Nebraska football podcasts and stuff, and a lot of them were pointing to him as a guy like, hey, we got to get this guy involved because he's got the size, he's got the athleticism, and we're kind of lacking those middle of the field options. So he's a very interesting prospect.
Another one in that tight end. You have to do some more research on this because some of these tight ends are coming out of nowhere, and some I've just not heard of. So we'll have to have a look. But I mean, let's say Nebraska. There's still a few guys. Obviously, the other one we've got is Cam Taylor-Britt. Now, me and Ryan, we obviously did a look down on the cornerbacks not so long ago, and obviously this guy's the tackle machine. 150 tackles, 10 for a loss in there as well. He's got 5 interceptions. He's returned them for 150 yards, so obviously got some speed on him when he does get those interceptions in the bag. 25 odd passes defended, 4 forced fumbles again. You know, Nebraska may not have been a good team this year, but defensively they produced some really good guys, and this guy could do really well.
Yeah, there was like if you followed the Big 10 at all, they were talking about Nebraska being the best 3-9 team of all time. They had a really good defense. Cam Taylor-Britt, I think, is a good player, and he was doing some returning as well back in 2020 more than he was this last year, but he's a pretty gifted player. I would be surprised if he went undrafted.
Yeah, from what I've seen, he's a proper athlete. He's the kind of guy that you say you ask him to both go both ways. Can play receiver, can play defensive back. Like say, he's athletically gifted enough. He's got the good frame as well. Like say, he's got decent size, good tackler. I think. Whose team was he on at the Senior Bowl? He was on one of the teams, wasn't he?
I think he was on the Jets side because they got all the good corners for that one.
Yeah.
I think he looks like someone that'll be a late round guy. I don't expect him to slip through the net and go undrafted. Like say Nebraska, I'm actually going to watch them. They're coming here to Dublin to play Northwestern in the Aviva Classics. I'm going to that game, but I hope they play a bit better this year.
I can't believe, like, as the college football, I would guess the point of that is to expand the game and to gain more fans and stuff, and you're sending Nebraska and Northwestern to try to expand the sport. You're going to really enjoy that 12-10 game.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I'm not expecting much from it.
Yeah, just a spoiler. Out of doing all this, Northwestern probably get the least amount of time talked about when it comes to this draft, if at all, really. There, but yeah, at least Nebraska have been able to get some on guys out there. So you got those 4 big ones really there from then. You got a few others. You got Cam Jurgens, the offensive lineman. I think he's a guard of theirs, if I remember rightly. Then you got the defensive lineman Ben Still and Damian Daniels, but I didn't have any of them particularly high on any lists, unless anyone wants to correct otherwise. No, move on from that then. So, moving on to Northwestern. This isn't going to take long. So, the only sort of big draft prospect they possibly had coming this year was their safety, Brandon Joseph, but instead of declaring for the 2022 draft, he's gone to Notre Dame to be heir apparent to Kyle Hamilton. On a team bereft of talent, that's a big loss for them.
He's a first-round player, like no doubt about it. That's a stud that I think Northwestern fans were probably just really hoping and praying in the transfer portal era that they could hold on to him, but it was only a matter of time.
Yeah, he's going to be a great replacement for Hamilton. Like I say, he was one of the only 2 safeties I'd have put in the first round this year. I'm quite surprised he's not declared with interest in depth at the position. They decided he wanted to probably try to win something, so I kind of get that. Northwestern did have a guy drafted, Clayton Thorson. Their quarterback was taken in the first round of the USFL, if that's anything for them. He wasn't great either.
Hang the banner.
Oh god, completely forgot about that. The only other 2 guys I could find that they're actually sending is the defensive lineman Jeremy Miser. He was ranked 285, so possibly really on the priority free agent list maybe. And then the offensive outside linebacker Chris Bergen, he's ranked about 380. So yeah, don't think there's no reason to stay on Northwestern much longer. They were not very good, and hopefully, like I say, for when they come over to Ireland next year, hopefully they've got some talent sorted out and they make a game of it.
You can never fully count out Pat Fitzgerald to put out like a decent team, but it's not going to be on individual talent. It's going to be a couple of hard-nosed linebackers and a decent run game, and it's not going to be an exciting brand of football.
No, I guess it's going to be more a slug'em affair, I guess. You're not going to go there expecting 50 to 45, not like Wake Forest games this year where they just like 100 points every single game.
No, that's going to be like a 38-point over-under, I would guess.
And you would smash the under completely.
Yeah.
We've had a quick question in the chat. This is more for you, Kevin, but he's talking about, speaking of playing in Munich, obviously you're out near that way, do you have an ideal matchup that you'd like for the locale over there, and which teams are the most popular, if any?
For the NFL, you mean?
Yeah, for the NFL.
Yeah, so I mean, like if you're trying to grow the game, at the end of the day, you're going to want to see high scoring, high flying out. Like the ideal matchup is anybody who watched the playoffs is you would send the Chiefs and the Bills out there. That's not going to happen, but. If you really are serious, if the NFL is really serious about doing this European thing, that would be the thing you're going to do. Now, in reality, they're going to send it's going to be the Jets and the Titans or something. But I think, you would love to see the Bills. You would love to see the Chargers. You would love to see one of these young up-and-coming quarterbacks with the high-flying offense. But the NFL, you guys are in the UK, the games that they've sent to London every year with the Jaguars being the staple, and they're they're really excited to send somebody out there, but they're not really putting their money where their mouth is, which teams are actually going out there.
Yeah, I think I'd agree. Like you say, you do want to send the teams out there that will create a lot of excitement. I know some of the games we got this year in the UK were a little bit damp, squibby, but hopefully we get some better ones this year. We're told the Saints are coming, but this is a year when the Saints are just...
Yeah. Right. This is when they'll send the Saints.
We're gonna be getting, no one at quarterback, and they're going to have to cut half their team again because they're 70 million over the cap. So, and Michael Thomas will probably be injured. So, you do want some of these better teams out here. And of course we want the Lions, but hey, we'll have to wait. We should have got them the year before last, but,
We were out there, back in like 2016, 2017? I can't remember. It was a few years ago now.
It would have been 16, won't it?
Yeah, 16.
Well, no. It's been a few years now. They're long overdue a return, especially with Dan Campbell. I just want to go and hug the guy. He's so amazing, bless him. Anyhow, we'll move it back to the draft chatter again. So yeah, nothing from Northwestern really. You're not going to hear anyone called unless, as Ryan says, you're watching the USFL draft. Next up, the team that everybody hates, Ohio State, and of course they're sending a lot of players there this year, and you have to start off with the first round guys there. They're definitely, one of them certainly will be, one should be, the wide receiver core, Garrett Wilson, Chris Olave. I love Garrett Wilson. He was one of my players to watch this year. I just love every aspect of his game, the way he plays. He's just dangerous at all three levels, and obviously Chris Olave is just a wonder to himself. I mean, they were part of the triumvirate that absolutely destroyed the Big 10 after Ohio lost that first game last year. They never looked back. I mean, I guess you'd be glad to get rid of those two, but you know they're going to have others waiting in the wings. Obviously, Smith and Jigba now is going to...
Yeah, I was going to say, the worst part is
yeah.
The best one is still coming back, so...
But they are a pair of incredibly talented receivers who are going to go high, and rightly so.
Yeah, Garrett Wilson is my favorite of the two. He was somebody that throughout the season, I was thinking this would be an absolute run to the podium pick for the Lions if he was there for the Rams pick. And then as the Rams went on the playoff run, you started realizing that, by the time we're going to be drafting, he's going to be off the board. So unfortunately, that's probably not going to be a reality for us. But Chris Olave, I think he would be a really good consolation prize because he's just a really, really, really good receiver. And that's just, he's a really good route runner. He's got really good hands. He's pretty good after the catch as well. He's not going to wow you with athleticism. His combine numbers are going to be, they're not going to be DK Metcalf or something, but he's just a really good wide receiver who you're going to look back 10 years from now after he's had 8 1,200-yard seasons, and you're like, man, how does this guy keep producing? And he's just a pretty special player in that way. He had one catch against Michigan State. I try to forget that game because it was 49-0 at halftime. At halftime. But he had this over-the-shoulder catch against Michigan State that was just ridiculous. And I have no idea how he tracked the ball and contorted his body and kept himself in bounds. But if you're looking at Chris Olave and thinking, well, he's a good player, but what's the ceiling? Go watch that play. It's absolutely special. So he should be a first-round player as well.
Yeah, just before Ryan gets on there, just the receiver stats from that day, I got them up, I have to. Chris Olave went 7 for 140 and 2 touchdowns. Garrett Wilson went 7 for 126 and 2 touchdowns, and Smith and Jigba went 10 for 105 yards and a touchdown.
And they called the dogs off at halftime too. That could have been, they could have scored whatever they wanted. If they wanted 80, they could have scored 80. If they wanted 90, they could have scored 90. I really believe that, unfortunately. That was a tough day.
Well, I mean, going into it, I mean, you were undefeated, you'd just beaten the Wolverines, I bet. Yeah, that must have, like you say, that must have been really tough given the season you had to that point.
Because we were banged up, we had some injuries, and we knew, the point spread was something like it was close to 20, And we knew that the reality was we weren't going to really hang with them. But nobody expected it to be that bad. And I was sitting watching with my girlfriend. It was one of her first full games that she was going to watch of the season. She had watched the Michigan game, and she said, well, you guys are good. You got to give yourself a chance. And every time she looked up, it was oh, they scored again. Oh, they scored again. This seems really fast. They scored again. It was tough, man. It was really, really hard.
Oh, you don't have that problem, do you, Ryan? Thankfully, Lorraine doesn't watch Arizona State with you.
No one watches them because they don't kick off till 3:30.
Yeah.
Pac-12. That's the two things about the Pac-12. It sucks, and it's even worse in the UK.
Oh dear. So yeah, right. What do you make the two Ohio State wide receivers? Obviously, both incredibly talented.
Yeah, I think Garrett Wilson probably just takes the edge as the front runner there. I don't expect to be anywhere near him draft board. I think he'll be gone by 20. I think he'll probably be the first receiver off the board, I imagine. And then you'll get a quick flurry of them in succession. Olave, I think, is a less athletic version, but maybe a better finisher, more production in the end zone. Like I say, he won't light up the draft boards. He won't put up huge numbers, but I mean, speed-wise, agility, jumping. But he lets his player do all the talking. He'll let everything, just watch his film. That'll all tell you everything you need to know about him. I think we'll be in contention at 32 or 34. And I think if he does land there, I think it's hard to really pass him by because he's someone that could elevate this game. We have a very needing a deep threat. We need someone that's able to get in behind guys, and you take that money shot down towards the end zone. He brings that to you. So he's going to certainly be able to play at 32, 34 if he even gets that far.
Definitely. Joey 2 times has come into the comments. What up, Doe? What up, Doe to you? Also calls Dunbar the Duke of Detroit. Well, you can both be Dukes. You're both listening to us here, and we really appreciate that there. So yeah, that's just the two main guys coming from Ohio State there. You've got lots of others. Obviously, the other receiving threat you've got, and Ryan, I know me and you are not high on him whatsoever. I don't know whether you're a bit different, Kevin, but Jeremy Ruckert, the tight end, yeah. Ryan's remarks say it all. We're not high on him. We're not sure he's going to do very well come draft time.
Is good, not great. Yeah, somebody will pick him in the 5th round, and he'll be a 2nd or 3rd string tight end for somebody.
Yeah, agreed there. So amongst the latitude of other players they've got here, you got the running back Master Teague. Now he got 100 yards against you as well, didn't he?
Who didn't?
That game, anyhow, specifically, that was a bad one there. But you got the defensive tackles Haskell Garrett and Antoine Jackson, cornerback Demario McCall. You got the safety Marcus Williamson, who I know got himself in a lot of hot water because the day after the season finished, he turned around and said, Ohio State fans have no football IQ whatsoever. I know that didn't go down well with them. Then you got the offensive tackle pair, Tyre Munford and Nicolas Petit-Frere. And then you've got the defensive end, Tyreek Smith, as well. Kevin, who stands out of that group there? Is there any guys you do quite like in there you think are going to do well in this draft?
Yeah, Haskell Garrett is a stud. If the Lions didn't double dip on defensive tackles last year, I think he would be somebody Dan Campbell would love. But no, he's going to be a really good player. He's a penetrating defensive tackle that I think a lot of NFL teams are looking for now. He was the best player on Ohio State's defense last year, pretty clearly, consistently the whole year.
Ryan?
I agree. I've seen someone actually mock Haskell to Lions. I think he was at 32. I think we used our first rounder on him. I agree. I don't want to go. I've seen a lot of people debating it. I don't want to go defensive line in the first round. I know we can get upgrades, but we took double dip last year. I know he's great on that interior, trying to generate pressure, but I'm not ready to give up on Levi just yet. Like I say, I know some people sounds like they already have, but him and Aleem, but he'd be a good player, but I kind of want to stay away from him. I think defensive back class-wise, this has got to be one of the worst crops for Ohio State for years. I don't see any defensive back getting drafted this year for Ohio State, and you don't often say that.
No, I'd probably agree with you there. You say you're probably going to see him late on day 3, if anything. But I mean, when you had that offense there last year, I mean, you don't really need a defense when your offense is putting up 50 odd points a game or whatever stupid thing it was, do you? So it's one of those. So we'll move on then from Ohio State, and then we'll move to the other state. We'll go to Penn State, and now Penn State. Now this is potentially a loaded class, one of maybe the most loaded classes coming out of the Big 10. And obviously the highlight reel here, especially on the offensive side of the ball anyhow, you've got Jahan Dotson, wide receiver, a draft crush of many a Lions fan. I know you'll know him pretty well from this year, Kevin. He got 137 yards and a couple of touchdowns there against you. But I mean, this guy, just in terms of his ability to run routes, even though he's a bit undersized, he's just a very skilled technician who just gets so much in the way of production. He's got 2,800 yards, 25 touchdowns in college. He's got a rush touchdown, a punt return touchdown. He started doing more special teams works over the last few years. This kid could potentially be something very special at the end of the first or maybe the start of the second round.
Yeah, and going back to what we mentioned with somebody else, he did that with Sean Clifford at quarterback, which is even more impressive. No, Dotson is one of my favorite players in the draft. He's a really special player. Before the catch, he's a really great route runner, and after the catch, he gets even more dynamic with the ball in his hands. I would love to see Jahan Dotson in Detroit. I think him and Amon-Ra would be an awesome wide receiver combination.
Would you give the 32 for him?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I wouldn't think twice about it.
Ryan?
No, see, I'm not convinced his game at the next level will make him an out-and-out one, and I want to spend a first round on a wide receiver that he's a true wide receiver one. I think he'd be a great complementary piece, and I agree. Savvy route runner, he's got that niftiness, hits the hole well, he picks his timing very well, like say, also offers the returning, but bit too rich. For 2 picks later, I'll take him at 34, but I've got him at that high end of the wide receivers, but there's guys I just want before him. Like say, I want someone with a bigger frame. Like say, the frame for me is just not quite there, and that's what holds him back.
He's a great 1B, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's fair, but I'd tell Kevin, I think that he's that he's going to be a very good prospect there. So hopefully, we'll see what we see from him there. But I mean, he's not the only guy who you don't kind of know where to pin from this Penn State lineup, but they're going to be damn good. I mean, we've not really talked about linebackers so much, but Penn State love a good linebacker. They love a good defender in general. They make them, every single year there. And obviously on the linebacking core, you've got Brandon Smith. So he's one of the guys who's on Feldman's freaks list, just athletically so gifted there that, they say his ceiling is ridiculously high if he can reach that. But you've never really seen him dominate at the college level to the degrees you would like for a guy who's got that sort of ceiling. But I mean, he has the potential to be a hella good linebacker and the next big thing from Penn State. But again, some people have said he's a first round pick. Is that maybe a bit too rich there? Do you think maybe that he is worth that, or that you have to wait a little longer?
I don't think he's a first round pick. He's gotten the Isaiah Simmons comparison, right? That just really versatile. He can play safety. You could put him off the edge. He can play linebacker. He can cover. The problem is, like you said, he just hasn't shown it enough. And, he's a really gifted athlete, but hasn't been consistent enough in coverage and hasn't been consistent enough in his run fits. And, I think somebody's definitely going to take a shot on him because I don't know what Penn State puts in the water up there, but the amount of kids that they go through that run 4.40s at 240 pounds, like he's going to be another one of those just freaky athletes to add to Jason Owe and Saquon Barkley and Micah Parsons and all of these guys that they have every year. But he's just not polished enough at that spot to be a first-round pick. And even Isaiah Simmons, has struggled in the NFL, and he was a lot more polished, I think, coming out of Clemson than Smith is coming out of Penn State.
Do you agree with that assessment of Smith, Ryan?
Oh yeah, the Isaiah Simmons comparison puts me off. That scares me. I don't want these unpolished gadget guys. Like say, Simmons has not found a role in the NFL. For 2 years now, he's struggled immensely, and all the Lions fans were really upset when we didn't take him at 3. But so far, that's not been justified. I agree that he's not a first-round player, but he will go in the first round because I think he will test off the charts. He'll put massive numbers. He'll do a Byron Jones, and he will inflate his draft stock immensely. Anyone that wears 8 bicep bands has got to be good. Like, so when you dress like he does on the field, you have to be elite. We know how good he is, but he's just not put it into raw numbers, and he's not dominated any physical performances yet. There's a player in there, but that's too rich for my blood when it's going to take a little bit of work to get it out. Great second rounder, though. If you see him in the second round, I think he could be really good potential.
Yeah, I think I would tend to agree with you there. Just quickly going back to the receiver thing, Joey in the chat says it doesn't have to be a big wide receiver. I reckon someone like Jalen Tolbert or Romeo Daubs, 6'2", 200 pounds, they might go well, but you wouldn't take them till pick 66. I don't know if some of these guys are going to be there at pick 66. I feel like there's going to be a real run on receivers, especially at the start of the second round, but oh god, if
Christian Watkins is a guy in that mold that I'm really curious about. I like him a lot.
Oh, the North Dakota State one.
Yeah.
Ryan loves him. Ryan was watching the FCS playoffs very, very carefully, and he absolutely adores him, don't you, Ryan?
I do, yeah. He is just a monster on the outside, and he is so deceivingly fast for such a big frame. And I saw his measurements as well. He's already been measured. He lived up to it as well. Like say, he's like 6'4". 210, 215. Needs to put a little bit of weight on, but tracks the ball incredibly well. Like I say, he is a good home run deep threat, and he's got nice soft hands as well when the ball comes in. He's going to go, I think, in the second round.
Yeah, there is going to be a massive run of wide receivers in the second round, I feel, this year. There's just that many guys in that area that have just the potential to be so great. Teams are going to go for them quite early, but we'll see with that. Moving back on to the Penn State prospects, obviously we've mentioned they love to churn out defenders like there's no tomorrow. Obviously Brandon Smith, one of the big guys there, but the 2 other big prospects they've got there, and one that could potentially be in play for us if we don't go Kyle Hamilton, that's Jaquan Brisker, the safety. Ryan, I'll come to you first on him in a second, because I know you'd love him as well. He's a 3-year guy from there. 150 tackles, 10 for a loss, 5 interceptions, 14 passes defended, fumble recovery, former JUCO transfer. He's also on the Feldman's Freaks list. As Kevin said, they put something silly in the water there that just makes them athletically different. I mean, I've got him down as he's Hamilton light. He can do pretty much everything you need him to an incredibly good level, but Hamilton just does everything at an elite level. And, you're going to get a great player out there. And then the other one who has got a lot of love, especially these last few weeks. We'll go back to defensive end. You've got Arnold Ebiketie, 3 years at Temple, transferred to Penn State this year. His season, 12 games, 62 tackles, 18 tackles for a loss, 9.5 sacks, 2 forced fumbles, pass defended. This is a guy who's part of this edge class at the start of the second, end of the first, where there's so many tantalizing prospects. But I mean, Ryan, I'll move on to you. Defensive prospects from Penn State, that there are some class ones here this year. Not top 10 guys, but they're going to be incredibly good.
Oh yeah, Briscoe is right on the cusp of the end of the first, start of the second. I think you'll see him gone within the first few picks of the second round. He's had an injury concern because of how he plays. Like I say, he's a hard hitter. I've seen him when I watched him. Looks a bit like Tracy Walker. Sometimes doesn't take his own safety into regard, comes down like a heat-seeking missile. But in the open field, he's really hard to shake off. He takes really good angles. He wraps up really well, thumps when he needs to. He's a good box safety, like you say, and he's got the interceptions as well. If you push him back or ask him to go to an island at the back, I think he'll do really well. He's my second safety. Like I say, I think I'd be very comfortable taking him at 34. I think he's going to be a really good player at the next level. He's more physical than Hamilton, I think.
Kevin, I mean, what are your thoughts on those two, Kevin? I mean, they're just, again, two really good defensive prospects coming from Penn State. There's just something they do there, isn't there, that creates these really great guys all over.
It's ridiculous, man. No, Brisker, I like him a lot. You go back and watch. I was watching the Wisconsin game. It was week 1. It was a huge matchup, and he hurt I want to say his shoulder like pretty early on in the game, and the guy is just clearly a warrior, man. He was still making plays, very clearly playing hurt. He would go in, make a tackle, and then get up and very clearly be injured, but he's not somebody that's going to take himself out of a game. I think, if he came out last year, he would be a clear number 1 safety in the class. But unfortunately, like you said, Kyle Hamilton's in this class, so it's a tough draw for him. But I like him a lot. Hbcu is another guy that's just, again, he's going to test really well. He's going to be a pretty explosive guy coming off the edge. The other guy off the other side was Jesse Luketa, who was a really good player too. He's got some versatility to his game that they moved him around quite a bit, who I like a lot too. But yeah, Brisker, Hbcu, these are early second round type of players that I'd be surprised if they slipped past, basically the end of the second.
And like you say, Luketa's in the draft. They've got Ellis Brooks, another linebacker, in the draft. Tariq Castro-Fields at cornerback, they've got in the draft as well. There's just a ridiculous amount of defensive talent there. I mean, I know, again, we did the cornerback class, Ryan, and Castro-Fields is up there as well. He's no slouch.
No, I can't remember. He's quite big as well. I think he's got a big frame as well. He reminds me of a bit of Armani or a Warrior. He's got that strong frame. Like I say, he's not a slouch. He's pretty good off the line. I think he's mainly man coverage, if I remember rightly. I think that's what Penn State like to play a lot of. So it'd be good to see him, like I say, strong at line of scrimmage. He had a pretty good senior ball. Like I say, even though we got what we thought were the lesser corners, I think he's someone that will go day 2, day 3, but there's a lot to work with there. As you say, we should be drug testing Penn State every year because their defenders are just brilliant.
Absolutely, yeah, fully agree with that one. And ending out their draft class, you've got Derek Tangelo, the defensive tackle, and then you've got their punter Jordan Stout, because #special teams matter. But you're going to hear Penn State called very often this season.
If you're looking for a punter, that kid is unbelievable. I'm not like everything he touched was it. They played against Michigan State in basically a blizzard whiteout, and it was just our punter was struggling, our kicking game was struggling. He was putting everything inside the 5. He's going to be an NFL starting punter, no question.
Well, unfortunately for us, punter's probably the one position we can safely say that we're all right at. But yeah, if you're a fan of punters in the draft, on Kevin's recommendation, Jordan Stout, the Penn State punter,
he's unbelievable.
Yeah, keep an eye out for him, because I think more punters and kickers are going to start getting drafted in the future. It seems to be heading that way anyhow. But moving out of Penn State, move on to Purdue. Not a lot going on here. 2 big guys though, who they've got coming in. They're both potentially first round guys. But one definitely is, if not the other, maybe in the early second. But you've got the edge and my draft crush, or one of them, George Karlaftis. I will die on this hill to this day. He is the best edge rusher in this class, and I don't want to hear anything against it. I'm doing a video review of him that's going to be coming out this weekend. I absolutely love the guy. I think he's got the best pass rushing arsenal in this class, and I think it's going to translate to the next level against some of the other guys who win with too fewer methods and are going to get found out at the NFL level. But, that's just my thing there. And then another favourite of ours, the wide receiver David Bell. 3,000 receiving yards pretty much in college from 232 receptions, 21 touchdowns. Probably the most technically gifted wide receiver in this draft out of the lot of them, especially when it comes to his route running. They engineer so many touches for him there that he has to have the route tree to be able to keep things fresh with them. So, not the biggest class, this one, Kevin, from Purdue, but these two are 2 high-level, high-quality players.
I know that one of my good friends, Jeffrey the Greek, on Twitter, he's a great follow if anybody's looking for like Big 10 content. He's an Iowa football fan. He's a former Iowa football player, and he couldn't be happier that David Bell's gone. And we just talked about how good the Iowa secondary is. Like, the only thing I need to say about David Bell, he played 3 games against Iowa in his career. The first one, he went 13 catches for 197 yards and a touchdown. The second time, he went 13 catches for 121 yards and 3 touchdowns. And last year, he went for 11 catches, 240 yards, and a touchdown against that Iowa secondary that, you know, we talk about the NFL guys coming out every year. David Bell is a stud.
I feel like that's probably more than every other receiver that's played against them combined.
It's got to be up there, yeah.
Oh, dear. Right, what do you reckon of these two here? I know you're a massive fan of Bell.
I'm a massive fan of Bell. Now, he's got a ceiling. He's kind of like Dotson. He's a 1B, so he will not go in the first round. I think he's a second-round guy. I was going to refer to anyone that wants to watch him, go watch the Iowa game. Single-handedly, him and Aidan O'Connell shredded that defense. He's one of the best route runners in the draft. He works a lot in the slot. Like, a lot of the times he'd hit them on the wheel route, so he'd be going out, he'd fake it outwards, and then he'd burn around the corner upfield. I think he did that for at least one of the touchdowns. Like I say, he'd use him on jet sweeps, so he'd take pass catches in the motion. He'd get tosses from the quarterback. Like I say, so you'll motion him across the front of the line of scrimmage, keep the defense honest. Technically very sound. He's got a lean frame at like 6'1", 6'2", so he's not the biggest guy out there. He's not the strongest, but he's very technically gifted. I think he'll be one of those guys that flies off in the second round. Had a great year. In a Purdue team, I loved watching them. They were one of my favourite teams in the whole conference to watch this year because they put up some great performances even when they lost. So he's someone that's certainly going to have to keep an eye on this year. And Karlaftis, as you say, a terror on the outside. He's up there in conversation, one of the best edges. Technically very gifted, very stout. He's very patient as well. Like you say, he doesn't rush. Practices well. Knows what he's best at. He's got a good, strong size, good built frame, good lower body. So I think he's going to be someone, like I say, that will go a lot higher than people say in Agile. He's going to go, that's for sure. I expect him to be a top 10 to 15 guy, probably edge 3 off the board.
Well, I mean, I wanted to ask Kevin this, because like you say, we've enjoyed watching Purdue this year, and one of the reasons why is, like, Aidan O'Connell has just become an incredibly gifted quarterback. I mean, he threw for about 550 yards, I know, against you guys, MSU. Bell got 200 plus yards, but I think he's been one of the nice surprises this year. You didn't really take much of a look at Purdue to start with, and then you thought, oh, their defense is doing really well, but actually their quarterback, he's playing really damn well.
Yeah, and their quarterback, or their head coach is a former quarterback. He's a really good developer of quarterbacks, Jeff Brom. So Aidan O'Connell, yeah, he's a guy that I think could. The problem is he doesn't have that elite arm, right? And a lot of, you know, when we look at projecting you to the next level, that's going to be his biggest problem. But, you know, he is really good at dissecting a defense and knowing where his guys are going to be. And, you know, the nice thing for him is he's been able to count on David Bell being open pretty much every play. Like, you go through the David Bell game logs and how many catches he has every game, it's like 10 plus every week for 3 years.
Yeah, obviously it's how does he adapt now to his favourite weapon being gone. Purdue are going to have to come up with somebody who's going to be able to, or at least probably going to be 2 or 3 guys who have to replicate that sort of production there. But, you know, as far as this season's gone, it's been an absolute pleasure to watch them. In terms of the rest of Purdue's class, I could only find their fullback Sander Horvath. He's going in there.
He's good.
Oh, okay.
He's really good.
Okay. Tell us that. What makes him stand out then? I didn't think anyone would really know there, but go for it.
He is an awesome receiving threat. He was also like the second weapon. If you go to the Tennessee Ridiculous Bowl game, he makes a phenomenal one-handed catch where he makes a big adjustment. He has got really soft hands. He's got sticky fingers. He's pretty agile. So for a fullback, he looks like a tight end. I think at the next level, he's someone that could get picked up and work his way on a roster. But he's a really good receiving threat. And when he's asked to protect Hayden O'Connell and stay in the pocket, he's a good picking up the blitz, picking up blockers as well. He made some really big catches this year in some of the crucial wins. Like I say, he has got a really good adjustment when the passes aren't just right. I've seen him go over the shoulder. I've seen him go back one-handed. There's one where I think he dives into the end zone and scoops up one-handed. I think it's the Tennessee Bowl game where he plays a really good game because Bell didn't play at all. And like I said, he still had a huge performance on the day.
Okay, right. Well, in that case, we've got two very good prospects there from Purdue and potentially a surprise fullback in there as well. So we'll see where he gets drafted. So we're down to our last couple of teams now. So we come to Rutgers, and they're going to get slightly more airtime.
Can we pass them?
They're going to get a tiny bit more airtime than Northwestern. Not very many. There's just one guy really in here. We had him in the Senior Bowl, the wide receiver, Bo Melton. He's got 2,000 receiving yards, 11 touchdowns. He's got a couple of rush touchdowns. He's been used as a back more, and he's got a punt return touchdown as well. He works in special teams. That's pretty good production for being on such a bad team. I mean, I couldn't even tell you who their quarterback was out of thing, and but he's going to get himself drafted, and rightly so. But this is about it for Rutgers, I'd say.
Yeah, and he'll get drafted. He's a fun player, like you said. He's played on terrible offenses his whole career there, but no, he's really good after the catch. One of those guys that you just try to get the ball in his hands with screens, with jet sweeps, with quick passes. Just get the ball in his hands, and he's a pretty fun player. So he'll get drafted. He'll make a roster and probably make some noise later on in his career.
Yeah, unfortunately for him, as you say, the Scarlet Knights, are they the worst in the conference? I think they might be. I think they might be the worst team. Yeah, they are. They are so hard to watch. Like I say, so he has had nothing to work with for most of his career. And I agree, getting him the ball behind the line of scrimmage where it's easiest, fast balls, pitch him it, like I say, and then just let him go to work. Let him ease himself into the game and then expand his route tree a bit deeper. But if you get him on like tunnel screens, get big guys out blocking for him, I expect he will make his way downfield. He'll make a guy miss. He will get some touchdowns at the next level and returner. Anyone that wants to put him on, he will definitely be one of the first in line to return kicks and punts as well because he's got that. He's got speed when he hits the hole. He knows what he's doing in that regard. He knows how to come back, cut. Say you'll see him do a spin move. He'll try hurdle a guy. He'll do anything he can at next level, I'm sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And hopefully he does get his chance to be on a semi-decent team there. Just out of curiosity, who is their quarterback? I can't think about it. I'm drawing a blank.
It was Noah Vidral.
Oh, of course it was.
Nobody to write home about.
No. Absolutely. Right, so last team. We've made our way through all the conference. We're down now to Wisconsin. And here you're looking primarily at some of the defensive options. And the two to look out for here are the inside linebacker duo, Leo Chenal, Jack Sanborn. I mean, these guys are blitz central when it comes to linebackers. Leo Chenal, his 2021, he's got 115 tackles, 18.5 for a loss, which is first in the Big 10. No one got more tackles for loss than he did. 8 sacks, 2 forced fumbles. And Jack Sanborn, not really far behind, 89 tackles, 16 for a loss, 5 sacks, a fumble recovery. So between them, that's about 35.5 tackles for loss, 13 sacks. You know, you can tell primarily here what Wisconsin do with their linebackers, which is hunt down position quarterbacks.
Leo Chenal, I think, is everything that people wanted Zach Bond to be. Was that 2 years ago? He is so much fun to watch. It's not just, design blitzes that get him home. He's a pretty good pass rusher in his own right when he gets squared up one-on-one on an offensive lineman. But he can get out there in space and cover a running back or a tight end. He can make plays in the running game. I think he's versatile enough that he can fit into just about any scheme that you ask him to. And, man, he was a fun player to watch this year.
Ryan?
Yeah, I'd like the Lions to maybe take a punt on Leo Chanel. Like say 3-4, 4-3. He will adjust depending on what you ask him to do and what you ask him to be. If you want to put him on the outside and use him in situational pass rushing downs, or if you just want to call his number, dial up a blitz, he's got the agility, he's got the downright, he's got speed in a straight line, he will get through the hole, and if he doesn't get the sack, at least he gets the pressure. He's someone that generates pressure, works really well in the box, but when needed to, he'll come meet a guy in the hole, might not always finish him off, but he'll stand him up and work in support. He works really well as a pair. Him and Sanborn really got the best out of one another, so you kind of want someone established with him. He works best in a duo, so he might work best in a 3-4, where he's got two Mike backers, let's say, on to put him somewhere, so it might not be the best for the Lions, like say, unless we want to change the defensive front, but I think it's someone that can learn to get the green dot, and let's say he's got the IQ to one day call plays.
Yeah, definitely. They say a pair of guys who have really given a lot of production, especially this year. So teams are going to be really interested in them. They're rounding out their class. You've got the defensive end Matt Henningsen, you've got offensive lineman Logan Bruss, and then also you've got the tight end Jake Ferguson, who projects to be one of the first taken tight ends in this class. I mean, he's got about 1,600 receiving yards, 13 touchdowns in his time there. He's a good receiving threat, but he's also a pretty beefy guy when it comes to blocking as well. I mean, I think you said you'd take him, wouldn't you? I mean, I'm not so keen on him, but I think you are, aren't you, Ryan?
I am, yeah, because he's one of the better blockers in the class. Wisconsin, for years now, run-heavy team. They've not always been that gifted at quarterback or in the passing game, so they've had to rely on using him as an inline tight end, blocking, running out behind him, or getting him to the next level, shedding blocks, like say. So he's someone that does the dirty work first, but then shows flashes in the receiving game. He's got a good frame. He's like 6'4", 250, I think, something like that. So he's got that nice frame you look for. So he can expand his passing route. But for what the Lions need, a good blocking tight end. He offers what we need first. Everything else is just there to work on. I think you can work on him as he make a very solid tight end 2 option.
I'm really struggling at the minute with this. Obviously, I give up a second for Trey McBride at the minute, and I know I shouldn't, but I think he does everything really well, and outside of that, I don't know. These tight ends, it's a weird one. Is there anyone else you like out of that lot, Kevin?
No, I do like Ferguson. He's a pretty natural receiver. He's got good hands. There was a clip that was going around the Senior Bowl. There was a catch he made in the back of the end zone that was pretty impressive. But his whole career, I mean, he's been a solid, like Ryan said, really solid blocker. But I think his receiving is a little bit underrated. I think I wouldn't be completely shocked in the right situation if he came out and had a Pat Freiermuth-esque season, that kind of sneaky, has a few touchdown grabs, has 400 or 500 yards, and people get pretty excited about, because you send him out on a play action coming across the formation, he's not Kyle Pitts, but he could be Pat Freiermuth. I really like Jake Ferguson.
Yeah, certainly agreed. So yeah, that is all the teams there. That are kind of all the guys who are coming up to the draft here. Obviously, some teams are contributing a lot, some teams are not. Obviously, it's a hard cycle for college teams when the NFL draft comes around. Obviously, losing the abundance of talent there, but just going through all the guys we've gone through, maybe whether it's the whole one's going to leave behind or the whole lot leaves behind. I mean, you see teams like LSU, even them, big teams, a couple of years ago, the draft rinsed them of talent. They've not recovered since. Who do you think suffers the most in the Big 10 this year, out of the classes that they're losing to the draft?
That's a good question. Probably Penn State, because it's all coming on the same side of the ball. Right, a lot of the teams, they're kind of spread, some offensive guys, some defensive guys, and you can kind of replace it a little bit. But Penn State's losing damn near their whole defense, and they're losing their defensive coordinator, who went to take a head job at Virginia Tech. Penn State's going to be in a pretty tough spot to rebound. When you lose that many defensive players and you're returning one of the worst quarterbacks in the conference. You hope that your offense can kind of make up for the lack of defensive players coming back. They're going to be in a tough spot. The obvious answer would be Purdue, just because they're not a school that typically puts out high level, second, first round picks. And when you have two of them coming out in one class, they're going to be in a really tough spot. But it's nothing against Purdue, but it's not a new place for Purdue to be in a tough spot. Penn State, this might be a pretty rough year for them coming up, because they're always going to have a tough schedule. I know they go to Auburn this year on the road in addition to playing in the Big Ten. So it could be a down year for them, especially on defense.
You talk about schedules there. I bet you just hated it when you saw Michigan's this year. 9 home games in 13 or something?
They do this every year. It's not a huge surprise that it's damn near every year that it's like mid-October before the first time that they leave home. And then their non-conference games are just an absolute joke. They're playing like UConn. It's a yearly occurrence for them. It's nothing new.
Oh, UConn. I remember we hyped up the UConn-UMass worst game in forever game this year, and it lived up to expectations. But I'll go to you now, Ryan. Who do you see as suffering the most out of this, the draft classes they're losing this year for the Big Ten?
See, I think Michigan are going to struggle. Like, say, how do you? It's fine losing like one defensive end, but when you lose Hutchinson and Ajabo, and then you lose maybe Dax Hill, like say, and you got Hawkins, like say, you're losing the spine of a defense, which their offense at times did stutter, because when they swapped out JJ McCarthy, Kane McNamara, they lost a lot of rhythm at times on offense. So their defense was their one constant thing they had to work on. And I know they had another back, like say, working with Haskins in tandem, but I feel like losing the core of that team there is going to hurt. They're going to feel the sting a bit next year. Like say, they might be able to mask over that with a pretty good schedule where they'll still be able to get by, but I expect they're going to be reining in some new guys in the year. I expect the pass rush to be a lot weaker next year. You're not going to see the huge... They're going to have quarterbacks more comfortable in the pocket when they're playing them. It's not going to be harassed every week by this defense that's still gelling in for a year. I see you go back to Penn State, I agree. Their brand of football is defense. Their offense is really painful to watch. The Auburn game this year, like say, this was supposed to be two teams that can run, pound the ball, and play defense. It was not pretty at all. I think James Franklin's on a really hot seat as well. He can't have a bad year, even though he's got all this money in that contract. I worry for him. So he's got big pieces to replace there. And like say, Clifford, he doesn't inspire you. He's not someone that can take a game by the scruff of the neck and overcome a bad shoddy defense, because they don't always score that many points. They're another offense where if you get 25 to 30 points out of them, that's pretty good on most weeks, so they'll struggle.
They're bringing in Penn State, one of the top quarterbacks in the country, recruiting. He's going to be, he's going to be a true freshman. So can he take the job right away? But that'll be, something interesting to follow.
Yes, but like saying Purdue, I don't feel too bad about, because there's no expectations, and they've already got their new receiver one. I think he's called Kentrell Sheffield. He was there last year as the number 2. He was so fun to watch. He made a ridiculous catch in that Tennessee game too. He's going to take that spot straight away. O'Connell, feel good about him. Jeff Brown, nice guy, good coach. They play for him, so I think they'll be okay. But yeah, Michigan and Penn State, they're going to struggle.
Yeah, I think I'd lean maybe just with Kevin on this one. I think I agree. Losing so many aspects on that defense is tough. Although if anyone's going to make guys just as quick, it might be them. But as I say, they're also losing wide receiver 1, which doesn't help them, especially when, as I say, Clifford is there. But there's a new quarterback. He may not even have a job this year. So it's going to be an interesting conference to watch, let's say. And now so that's everything in terms of the draft class from the Big Ten. And God, I didn't think it would go on that long. We have gone on for quite some time, but hopefully people are a lot more informed about some of the guys coming up now from here. Now, see, we're going to take a look at maybe a little bit of the future in the 10, we'll probably have to spend a little less time on this than I anticipated, but we'll probably have a look at some of the bigger acquisitions and maybe have a few thoughts on the end, and then we'll get it wrapped up so people can go back to their lives after all this time on here. But I've been listening to your podcast, Kevin. Now your last few, you've just done deep dives. Well, not deep dives, but you've just done sort of your recruitment classes on the offense and the defense, sort of the depth there. So we'll start it off with you again. Michigan State. What do you make of their class for next year? And have they really been able to improve in the areas you want them to and have a good steady side? Obviously, I do know some of the answers, but go for it. Let us know what you think about that class.
It's a pretty exciting group. Mark D'Antonio, the previous coach, the problem with him was the recruiting kind of took a step down, and Mel Tucker came in and really revitalized that part of the program right away. And you're starting to see that with this recruiting class coming in. There's a couple really good wide receivers. Jeremy Bernard is a name you're going to keep an eye on. He's a big athletic kid out of Nevada near Las Vegas. There's a couple defensive backs that are going to be really exciting. And it's a pretty good group. I think as Mel Tucker kind of establishes himself, he's going to keep bringing in more and more talent. The thing to keep an eye on too is now you have recruiting and the transfer portal. And the transfer portal, we're bringing in, we're losing Kenneth Walker, but we're bringing in 2 running backs, one from Wisconsin, who is a running back factory over there, Jalen Berger, who's going to step into a pretty big role right away. And then later on in the cycle, we brought in Jarek Broussard. He's a running back from Colorado. He was the Pac-12 Offensive Player of the Year in 2020. So he's going to come in. Those 2 are probably going to be a 1-2 punch. So it's not just the recruiting, it's the transfer portal now. It's even for us who live and breathe this stuff, it's kind of hard to keep up with sometimes. But yeah, we're bringing in a couple linebackers through the portal. We're bringing in an edge guy from the portal. So there's a lot of turnover every year, especially with Michigan State compared to a lot of other schools too. But pretty exciting group.
Who would be the one who you'd say for people to really watch out for then? If there's going to be the new Kenneth Walker type who's just going to break out and really, really do the business there?
Like on the team in general, right? It's, if you don't know the name Jaden Reed, like I said, at wide receiver, that's going to be the guy for 2022. But, looking forward as far as some of the younger guys on the roster who people might not know as much about, that's tough. There's a lot of these guys that I really like. At safety, Jaden Mangum is, I think, everything you look for in a single high free safety. Probably not going to be starting this year because we have 3 returning safeties with a lot of experience. But 2023 and beyond especially, Jaden Mangum could be an absolute stud.
So how do you reckon they're going to do next? I know obviously it's very early, but do you expect them to keep up the progression that they've shown this year?
Yeah, Scott and I were just talking on the podcast this week about, expectations. You come off a 10-win season, and a lot of people now set that bar, right? And I don't think we're quite ready to be a consistent 10-win program. But I do think that the roster is in a good enough spot. And the Big 10, I think, is a little bit vulnerable right now. Ohio State up at the top is what it is, right? They're going to be a national championship contender every year. They're going to be tough to beat. But you look around the rest of the Big 10 East, we just talked about Michigan and Penn State, how much they are losing. And then the bottom of the East is beatable every year. When Maryland, Rutgers, Indiana, it's not exactly murderer's row. So I think you're going to expect us to be an 8 to 9 win team, competing for probably the second or third place in the Big Ten East. We're not ready to compete with Ohio State. We showed that on the field last year. But, anybody else in the conference, I think we can square up with, any given week. I know we play Wisconsin this year, so that's going to be a tough matchup with, one of the top teams in the West. But, I think we got a pretty good season ahead of us.
Where'd you play the Wolverines at this year?
That's going to be at Michigan. But, that place is it's not the most intimidating of stadiums. It's really big, but it's really quiet. Because the way that place is built, it's a bowl that's dug into the ground, but a lot of stadiums, they kind of go up, and that sound really gets, kept in. And in Michigan, it's built out, and so it's actually pretty quiet for a 100,000 person stadium. And we've won there quite a bit the last few years, so we're not too scared to head into the big house.
Yeah, our podcast, our main guy here, Matt, he went there last year when they played Ohio State and they trounced them. And it was something to behold there. I guess they would be pretty loud that day. It's been a long time since they've really tanked Ohio State like that.
That had to be an awesome game to be at. That was one that was, just as a neutral college football fan watching on TV, was pretty cool. Being at that stadium that day would be awesome.
Definitely. I don't know how much you've had a chance to look at the recruitment classes, right? But is there anyone at Michigan State you're looking forward to seeing next year, be it transfer or, new guy coming up?
I think Jalen Berger was a good addition. I think if I look rightly, one time 24/7 did him as like a 3-star recruit. I think he was
a 4-star kid. He was a top 150 or so player, and as a freshman at Wisconsin, he got on the field right away too. So
I think if he's the one that sees the field straight away, like I say, looks like a guy that will start very well. He's got a good pedigree to him, stealing him from a rival. Like I said, there's only one reason he can't get in the field right now, and that's because Wisconsin, in my opinion, have the best back in the conference in Braylon Allen. I think he is going to be dominant this year. Like I said, I think Wisconsin should have a bounce back year under a guy that's been grained in now. So I think Berger's a good pickup. I think he'll pick up the slack of where Kenneth Walker left off. And I agree, Jaden Reed as well. He'll have a really good year. He'll be able to assume that go-to guy that Thorne is going to build a relationship with and feel comfortable looking for down the field. Like saying, expect him to get open quite a lot. So I have them over, I'd say about 8.5 wins. I think that'd be fair. Like say 8-9 wins. I think it'd be a good return this year because you've lost a lot of production. So I still think 9-win year would be good with a Michigan win.
I think, if I remember right, then listening to your pod, it's the offensive line depth, I think. Is that where you say you do have maybe a few issues there? It's the depth outside the starters that's the issue.
Yeah, I mean, the starters are also not exactly the best group in the world, but the depth is, offensive line has been a big problem with us for going on 6 or 7 seasons now. Basically, since our college football playoff appearance in 2015, the offensive line has been a bit of a problem.
So it remains to be seen what sort of goes on there. But yeah, let's say hopefully they're able to continue building on what they do. Because I mean, it was so nice last year when we started doing this podcast at the start of last year. We sort of just went sort of meh about most Michigan teams. Not out of thing, but you didn't think they were really going to do anything. And then they were going unbeaten. And you think, oh my God, they meet each other, they're unbeaten, and they ended up both having really good years. I know it ended disappointingly, but they must be happy with that year.
Oh, we were we've talked about it on the podcast. It's really, last year was so fun as a fan because there weren't many expectations going into the season. Like Vegas had our win total at 4.5. So we started off 5-0. I mean, we blow through that over under in the first 5 games. And it was just so much fun every week because you were playing with house money. There were no expectations. Starting this year, there's going to be expectations, and it's going to be, a little bit more stressful and anxiety-ridden as a fan. But last year was so much fun. It was really every single week was just, hey, let's throw it on TV, see what happens, and we'll have a good time because there wasn't that kind of fan anxiety of, well, what happens if we lose? We're like, we're kind of expecting to lose this year. So it was just a lot of fun. It really was on a week-to-week basis. I was able to go back home and catch the Nebraska game in the stadium, and it was a night game. We had a really good time at that one. It went into overtime. It was a little bit stressful, but that was a fun one to pull out.
Yeah, no, I say it was good to see it, and hopefully, it continues going on forward. Just to move through some of the others. So obviously, on the other side of town, Michigan, their draft class, obviously they're losing a lot of people this year, but their draft class is headlined by 5-star quarterback Will Johnson. I think he's got nearly a perfect 10 rating, and 24/7 coming there from cornerback. But they've also got a few good 4-star guys coming as well. So you've got Derek Moore, the defensive lineman, Keon Sabb, the safety, Tyler Morris, the wide receiver, Darius Clemens, another wide receiver. You've got Zeke Berry, he is a safety. You've got Jimmy Rolder, linebacker. I mean, they've got a decent recruitment class. I think it's third best. Well, it's predicted third best in the Big 10 this year. But are there any of those prospects that you know a lot about, really? Because obviously, when it comes to recruits over there, it's quite fierce, sort of in-state trying to get these guys there. So I guess you will come across the paths of quite a lot of them, even if they end up elsewhere.
Yeah, Will Johnson is a local kid. He's a stud corner. He's one of those kids that you look for to probably be a first-round pick a few years from now. But, Michigan is going to recruit really well every single year. They have that national brand. They have that ability to walk into a living room in California and Florida and Texas and have that big block M. It's just a matter for Michigan of developing the talent, and they have 2 new coordinators. They have a new offensive coordinator, new defensive coordinator. Jim Harbaugh's still there, but is he really all in, with taking the Vikings interview on National Signing Day? That's going to be the biggest problem for them. Recruiting has never been a problem with Michigan, even back in the day, 10 years ago when they were really bad and they were going through Brady Hoke and Rich Rodriguez. They were still recruiting at a high level. So they're never really going to have a huge problem with that.
Now, Ryan, is there anyone you're looking forward to seeing in this new class of draftees for the Wolverines? I don't think there's been that many in terms of transfers and that there, but there's some good prospects coming through.
Yeah, I think Zeke Berry is probably someone that's got a good chance to see some playing time as a freshman. Like I said, they're going to need a safety that'll be dependable. Now they're losing Dax Hill. I think he was pretty touted highly nationally. Like I say, he was up there in his state, one of the better safeties in the class. So even for a 3-star, I think he'll be someone that can work his way into a part job, but it'll be a good long-term piece of the future. Like I say, help to repair that secondary.
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting class for them, but obviously they've managed to replace some of the losses there, so we'll see what happens with them. Obviously, we'll have to move it on now because it's been going a while. You mentioned Penn State, you mentioned their new quarterback. Let's go to their draft class. They've had a pretty productive, winter, as it were. They are ranked as the 6th national side in terms of the class they've got, and 2nd in the Big 10, and obviously it's headlined by their brand new 5-star quarterback, Drew Allar from Medina. He's 6'5", 232 pounds there. I mean, they need this guy, don't they, really? We've talked about Sean Clifford. I do like Sean Clifford. I know you really, really don't, but this potentially be someone really special for them going forward.
Yeah, he's, the buzz on him is that he's got the best arm of anybody in his recruiting class. So, if you see down the line, he's going to get comparisons to that Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes. The buzz on him is that he's got that level of arm talent that he can make any throw you ask him to. So, it's just a matter of them developing him. I remember at Penn State a day when Christian Hackenberg was a 5-star prospect that can make every throw too. So, you never really trust the quarterback position with Penn State, but he's got all the talent in the world.
It's much needed for Penn State, isn't it, Ryan, this?
Oh, I think he can beat out Sean Clifford. I'm not high on Sean Clifford. I know he's had his injuries and stuff, but for me, he's not a he's not a scruff of the neck quarterback. But this kid, like I say, I saw like highlights. I think, like I say, he's been involved in the Elite 11. Like I say, he's been one of those top prospects, one of the highest recruits in the nation. So for him to choose a Penn State that's not a pass-heavy offense, that tells him a lot about what he thinks of Franklin, what he thinks of the offense, what he thinks he can bring to the team. I very much expect him to see consistent playing time as a freshman. He should be a good camp battle. Like I say, Clifford should be worried about his starting job. Like I say, I think it's a good year to grain him in as well, because expectations at Penn State this year will be very low. I don't think they're going to expect to do that well, so maybe it's the best time to just grain him in now.
No, definitely, but it does seem like they are building going forward. Just a quick shout out to Go Lions, who's in the chat. He says, hey, how's it going? How's it going, man? Hope you're doing well. Thank you for joining us, as always. Obviously, he's not the only 5-star recruiter they've got. Their running back room, they've retransformed as well. So they've got Nick Singleton, who's the 5-star running back out of Governor Mifflin, I think that says. It's from Reading. And then you've got Katron Allen. He's a 4-star running back out of IMG Academy. Other 4-stars, they've got Caden Saunders. You've got Jerry, who's a wide receiver. You've got Jerry Cross, tight end. You've got Zane Durant. Defensive line, you've got JB Nielsen, who's an offensive tackle, and then you've got another 5-star guy who's not declared yet, but he's got his letter of intent. You've got Danny Dennis Sutton, the defensive lineman, 5-star rated. He's about 0.99, just about as good as you can get. And they've got a few more guys there as well, but is there anyone else you're looking forward to seeing there, maybe, Kevin? Maybe not against you guys, but just in terms of how they're going to be as a football player. It looks like they've done well at quarterback and running back this year.
Yeah. We talk about like these freak athletes they pull in every year. This Dennis Sutton, defensive lineman, seems like he's going to be one of those guys that we look at going into the draft. That he's 260 pounds, but he has a 38-inch vertical. It's just they do this every year. I don't know where they get these kids, but he seems like another one that could be in that group.
Ryan, anyone else you're looking forward to seeing from the Penn State group coming up?
Oh, that pair of running backs, I think, is going to be able to give a good juice to that their offense. Like I say, anyone that knows high school football, knows Florida, knows IMG, they run the Florida scene. They're one of the biggest high schools in producing top talent. So any 5-star from them is usually good and great at the next level. So I think he'll be someone that'll take over those back duos, and like I say, they could have a supremely young offense. Like I say, they're going to have some proper juice to work with this year.
Yeah, agreed. I think they've done a good job, and they're going to have plenty of talent to recycle going forward. Right, we'll just move on with the big one. So you've got Ohio State in there as well. They've got the top-ranked recruitment class of the Big 10, 4th nationally. They're always going to bring in guys there, but they're 5-stars. They've got CJ Hicks, the linebacker, Sonny Styles, the safety, at 4-star. You've got a new quarterback there. God knows why they need a new quarterback. Devin Brown, he's not going to see much. You've got Kenyatta Jackson, the edge, Amari Ebor, the edge, Caleb Brown, wide receiver, Kylan Graves, wide receiver. Obviously, they need to reload up on that wide receiver room there. Gabe Powers, the linebacker, Tegra Shabola, the offensive tackle. I mean, God, this list just goes on and on and on for 4-star guys. They've also transferred in Tanner McAllister as well, who's a 4-star corner, and DeMonte Trayanum, who's the linebacker. He's also a 4-star guy. It's not fair, really, is it, Kevin, the amount of talent they bring in? But again, is there anyone who you're looking forward to seeing, though not when you play them on game day?
Right. The thing with Ohio State as a Big 10 fan, I guess, is that we always hope that they represent, once we get to the playoffs, it's like, all right, go Ohio State, because, we want them to face up against the Alabamas and the Georgias of the world and show that, the Big 10 is, has some serious talent and has some serious guys. But no, it's every year they're pulling in these kids. They're pulling in multiple 5-stars. They're pulling in multiple top 50, players at single positions, right? Like I think it was last year they had, like 3 of the top 5 wide receivers in the whole class. It's just ridiculous. One guy that I got to watch a little bit was Sonny Styles out of Pickerington. He's it's a pretty big school down there, and Michigan State has gotten a bunch of kids from Pickerington before out of that high school. And, he's going to be that next first-round defensive back out of Ohio State. So,
Ryan?
Well, they stole my running back. They took Arizona State's Chip Trainum, Devontae Trainum, to play linebacker. He's going back to his old position from high school. I'm very upset. Like I say, he was the future of our run game, and he decided that the bright lights of Ohio were too big for him. So it's going to be interesting to see how he does going back to defensive side of balls, because he's a 4-star recruit. So to change position after a freshman year, it's going to be interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. I know your running back room's been decimated this offseason. Obviously, Rashad White's gone to the draft. Everyone else just vanished. Painful time, isn't it?
Yeah.
Oh dear. So yeah, that's sort of the big teams in there. I'll sort of throw it out there now, because I know we've been going some time. But in terms of recruitment classes, is there anyone who stands out for anybody when it comes to the other sides in there? I mean, Kevin, I know you keep a close eye on it. Is there anything that surprised you? Any players that are coming you're looking forward to seeing on the other sides?
Specifically players, I guess not really. The one thing that's kind of funny if you look at the Big Ten is the split between the Big Ten East teams and the Big Ten West teams in recruiting as a whole, which is always pretty entertaining to look at. But no, I mean it's always surprising every year the amount of talent that some teams pull in. Indiana pulled in a sneaky good class. So I'm interested to see if they actually kind of turn that in. But yeah, it was a top 25 class after a 2-win season. So I don't know what Indiana's doing down there, but
Ryan, in terms of the rest of the Big Ten, any teams we've not gone through, is there anything that sort of caught your eye over these new recruitment classes?
The one I'll be watching is quarterback at Wisconsin, because Graham Mertz is terrible. He's one of the worst quarterbacks in the whole conference. So it's going to be interesting to see if any of those recruits, or if they pick up anyone that remainder of the portal, is able to come in and take over there, because he kills that offense stone dead in the water for me. I've seen too many times, like say, that he thinks he's the guy, he's not the guy, and they've got the best rushing offense, one of the best rushing offenses, need a quarterback to complement it. So if they've got any of these 2, 3, 4-star recruits, someone's going to give a good camp battle, because someone needs to beat him out, because he just hurts them week in, week out.
Yeah, I think it's fair to say, Kevin, I guess the overall quarterback play in the Big Ten isn't the best of what it's ever been at this moment in time, especially, like you say, amongst some of those West sides as well.
Yeah, and it's a conference that has never gotten the elite of the talent at quarterback around the country, but no, it's been in a pretty rough spot. Ohio State's in good shape with C.J. Stroud. I feel pretty good about where Michigan State's at with Peyton Thorne, but it's in a tough spot generally speaking. But no, it's only way to go from here is up. But no, I actually got to run here, guys. I really appreciate you guys having me on. But no, it's been a blast. I love talking football. I could talk all year long, but no, I appreciate you guys having me on. I do love the podcast. I love having some representation out here in Europe. So
yeah,
I appreciate
apologies
it.
that it's gone so long. We get chatting, and then before you know, time just goes anywhere.
Hey, we do the same thing on our show quite a bit. So
well,
it
thanks
happens.
ever so much for coming on. We do really appreciate it. If you want to quickly plug the podcast again before you go, please feel free.
Yeah, if there's anybody out there who is, like I said, kind of a college sports free agent, Michigan State, it would be happy to have you. We've got a great team and a pretty exciting program with a new head coach. So if anybody is looking for a team to root for, Michigan State's the place to go. But yeah, it's the Standing Room Spartans podcast. We talk Michigan State football the entire season. So yeah, the entire year, I should say. So if you're looking for a team, head over to Michigan State. And if you're looking for a podcast, yeah, Michigan State football all year long, Standing Room Spartans.
Well, you're always welcome back here anytime you want. So, if anything goes off with the Spartans, just give us a hit up and we'll have you straight back on. But you take it easy.
Hey, I appreciate you guys.
Thanks, Kevin.
All right, thanks ever so much. Take care. Yeah. realised how long we've been going, but I didn't think the chat would take that so long. But it is what it is. We love to chat, and that's what we do. So we're kind of going to round this out now. Anyhow, obviously we've been through the main recruitment classes there. I guess we'll just end it off. I mean, as it stands at the minute, what do you think is going to be the landscape of the Big Ten next year? Do you expect it to be sort of similar this year? Obviously, Ohio State, Michigan maybe up there, Michigan State, Penn State behind, or can anyone make a run from what you've seen? Do you reckon there's going to be any change as it stands? Obviously, there's still a lot to happen, but initial thoughts?
See, I feel like Penn State have the recruits now to make a really strong run. If they let the kids have their way and let them try run the offense like Ohio State have done, they're just giving the keys to the young man. I think Drew Aller could take that offense by the scruff of the neck, and he could put a spark, like a firework in it, and it'd go off. It's if he can, James Franklin will let him. Sean Clifford is not the guy there, so I feel like Penn State 9-10 wins if everything clicks with that 5-star quarterback running back duo. On the other side, you say you've got Wisconsin, you've got Minnesota. That's going to be another mess again because they're sides that are just not great. Like I say, really struggled. I expect that whole half to be another chaotic mess, and no one's going to really stand out again. But Ohio State, they're going to win it all, aren't they? Probably.
Do you reckon six wins the West again like it did last year? Was it the West that was 6 wins? There were 3 of them, weren't there?
Yeah.
Do you foresee that again? 6 wins and you win it?
I think Wisconsin will be better this year. Now they've got that back, Grandin and Braylon Allen. Let's say they're led by a strong run game. If they can bring back a better, stronger defense, I think they should have enough to win that West. Because Minnesota is so depleted. And Tanner Morgan, he's just a really frustrating quarterback to watch.
Yeah, definitely. I'm in agreement with you, though. I look forward to seeing Penn State, especially now they've not fixed the quarterback room or the running back room, but they've got the talent in there to overhaul it. If they can really start running the ball well, if they've got a guy who can throw it properly, and they keep that defense at a high level, then I think they could be challenging in 2-3 years. They could be a pretty decent side if they keep recruiting the way that they have done. But I agree, maybe it might stay a bit of the same next year, where some teams are going to get better, but the Rutgers, the Illinois, and that they're going to carry on struggling.
Yeah, they're just cannon fodder. They're fish food.
They're going to struggle forever and a day. So yeah, that's pretty much it for the recruitment classes. Thank you. This has been a very long show. Well, mind you, it usually is with us. We like to chat the night away about college football, but hopefully you've got a little bit more of a sense about what's going on in the Big Ten in terms of the prospects who are coming forward. And yeah, we're gonna hear a lot of names called very early, come the end of April from the Big Ten. A lot of talent that's gonna do really well, I think, in the NFL going forward. Is there anything else you want to finish off with in terms of this before we go and have a well-earned rest?
No, I'll just add though that for anyone that's not seen Michigan Panthers, they took a native Michigan quarterback first in the USFL, number 1, Shea Patterson. Oh God, no! I don't know why. He's not very good.
No, I know. It's like, and then you've got Teamu going next, and you're like, well, why wouldn't you go Teamu? Teamu's pretty decent. Exactly. And I don't know. Well, obviously you're going to be watching the USFL there, but it could be interesting. Let's put it that way.
Oh yeah, half of these first-round quarterbacks I've never even heard of.
No, it was good because I was watching a sports channel on YouTube while it was happening, so I didn't know where I could find the draft. And this guy had I don't know, he must be like some kind of super college nerd or something, because he had notes on most of these guys. He's like, oh, he played here. I'm like, bloody hell, I mean, that must take a lot to know. But I did learn a bit about some of them, but a lot of them are just like failed college quarterbacks from ages ago. It's just, oh my God, this is gonna be a bit there. But I mean, you had was it Paxton Lynch went last? Was it? He's like a former first-round pick or something, isn't he? In the NFL.
Yeah, I think he went at the start of the second round, and he was a second rounder in the NFL. Like you say, he's very experienced. He's not even a starter. Not even taken in the first round, I don't think.
But that's the thing. That's going to be a genuine QB battle, isn't it? It's got to be. You're not just going to start Shea Patterson over Paxton Lynch. I would
certainly hope not.
No. I remember Shea Patterson a little bit from his Wolverines days, and yeah, obviously I think they just went with the hometown guy who they knew better. I don't know. It's going to be fun. Watching them with Jeff Fisher is going to be a thing. Chrome's in the chat. He says, what up to you? Thank you for joining as always. Hopefully you've enjoyed the show, even though it's been quite long. Det Fan Man says, enjoyed this one. The Spartan was better than imagined. You know, Kevin is pretty decent. You know, you listen to his podcast. He's very fair. He's not a homer who just says everything Michigan's great. He's very, very critical at the same time. He's been a very loyal fan. So yeah, it was really good to have him on there. And he also talks about the quarterback battle there. Shea Patterson versus Paxton Lynch with Coach Jeff Fisher. It's a kind of wild QB battle for the Panthers. I agree. I don't think there's a starter there. I think it's going to be very fun. It's going to be a very fun thing to watch. So yeah, USFL. We'll keep an eye. I know Ryan's keeping an eye on it, so we will keep you updated on the podcast because we will need things to chat about during the spring when the draft is gone and we've exhausted all our draft content and we get to have a little break. So that's going to be fun. When does it start again?
First game scheduled for like the second week in April. It's something like the 14th of April. It should kick off.
Yeah, so we've got a little while before it comes along yet, but it'll give us some fun content to keep us going after the draft is done. Just remains for me to go through our next shows. So for the main Roar of the Lions podcast, you'll be looking Monday the 28th of February, this Monday coming. We're going to be going through our second part of free agency. We're going to be looking at the defense. We took a look at the offense week just gone. Had a lot of very fun and varied discussions on there. I'm sure it will be no different when it comes to the defense, especially as there's a lot of work needs doing on the defense and a lot of different ideas on how to fix it all. And then we'll be back with the college podcast on the 2nd of March next week. Can't believe it's already going into March. I've put to be decided with that because I mean, I guess we're going to do draft stuff now in weeks to go, I guess. I mean, all the bowl games are over now. It'll be Combine week, so we can do something on the Combine. But, yeah, if any of you listening have anything you want us to do in regards to the draft, scout players, position groups, anything, send it to us because that's the sort of stuff we'll be doing now. I don't know if there's anything... Is there anything you want to put in there? I don't know. It's coming close to the draft. It's just going to be draft chatter, really, isn't it?
It is, yeah. I can't think about a specific right now.
Yeah, so hopefully, hopefully lots of you join us, ask us lots of your draft questions, and give us some stuff to chat about, because we'll be able to make something out of it. So that's us next Wednesday, 2nd of March, and also keep an eye out over the weekends between now and the draft. I have started my college tape reviews. I know Ryan's doing some as well. What we're going to do, we're either going to do some live streams on YouTube or we're going to put up some premieres. We're going to go through the footage and do some scout reports for you over certain players. My first one, hopefully, is going to be this weekend on the Sunday. I'm going to do George Karlaftis, one of my favourite draft crushers. We're going to take a look at one of his freshman games and one of his senior year games, see how his game has evolved, what he brings to a team who is going to draft him. But we're going to be doing a lot of that coming up on the weekends. But no firm dates, just keep an eye out, and if there's a player you want us to scout, we'll do it for you because we're raiding caddies for footage as we go. We can get the all-22 for just about pretty much any player, so let us know who you want there. So, like I say, just remains for me to go through our socials. You can find us all over the internet, so obviously on YouTube if you're already there, Roar of the Lions UK, Twitch, ROTL_UK. Sorry if you guys in there have I've not been able to chat with you this evening, but I've just been that busy trying to make sure the technicals go well on here. I've not been able to keep an eye on everything, so I didn't want my computer to crash, but if you've been in there, I really appreciate it, and we really appreciate all you guys on YouTube as well. As I said at the start of the show, we hit over 800 plays last week, this week, just gone. We've never hit over 550 before. You know, we are thoroughly overwhelmed by all the attention that you're giving us, and hopefully you like what we do, and it just makes it all the more worth it as we do all this. Finishing off the socials, we've got the Facebook page, Roar of the Lions UK, our Facebook group, Detroit Lions Fans UK, One Pride Worldwide, Twitter, you can find us at ROTL_UK. We've just passed 1,900 followers. If you know anyone who doesn't follow us yet, get them to do so. We're trying to push to 2,000. We're trying to push ourselves up the rankings of UK podcasts for fans. We want to be one of the big ones on there. On Instagram, you find us at ROTL_UK, and on the web, you'll find us at www.rawofthelionsuk.com. Lot of articles you are going to find on there. Ash's one is still up about picking Kyle Hamilton at pick 2, which is absolutely the right thing to do, and Matthew is about to release one suggesting that it may be the best thing for the Lions to cut Jared Goff over the summer or possibly trade him away. That is going to make some good viewing there, and I know me and Ryan are going to put a lot of draft content up, so do keep an eye on the show there. Just remains for me though to thank Ryan as always for this mammoth show here and giving up the time to do this, and until next time, until the Monday, we shall see you then. So until then, one pride.
One pride.